Beautiful.
But like I said, every half hour I'll have to stop it and clap again.
Yeah, no problem. So, how long ago was that you started? About 5 minutes your video started. About right?
Afraid so. Have you been recording the whole time?
I did, yeah, but don't worry about it. It's no problems. So we'll say about 2:30, we'll have a look at it.
You know what? Me and Tim have done many a podcast where I've completely forgotten. And a good portion of podcast has been lost. I mean, so I'll set a little time on my phone, and
you won't believe I've had some big UK motovloggers on here, TMF, Lamb Chops, people like that, and it's always them. I've always had technical issues with them, so it's like the audio hasn't worked or the cameras haven't worked, so we've had to film them twice. It's been a nightmare, but it always happens. It always happens. Anyway, right.
We had Andy on our podcast actually.
Did you? TMF?
Yeah.
He's the total opposite of what you think he's going to be like. Did he let his hair down with you, or was he quite reserved?
Yeah, I've met him. I met him at the Triumph. We were both at the Tiger 900 unveil as well up at Hinckley. So I think those are the two main times I've chatted to him a bit. But he's very, I guess, like you say, maybe the videos are more formal than he is in real life, for sure.
Yeah, I think he's letting more of his true character come out now. He's just dripping it in there, I think, now. But initially, he played the sort of brown man initially, I think, just to play it safe and try and see how his channel would do. Sorry, and now I think he don't really care now. So he's this is who I am. Right, we'll crack open a beer, folks. A little introduction. This is motoBob. If you don't know motoBob. If you don't know motoBob, I'll leave some links down below. If you listen to the podcast, check out the show notes. If you're watching a YouTube vid, look at the description. There'll be a link to his channel. Massive UK-based moto vlogger. We were just having a little chat beforehand. I'm not blowing smoke up your arse, but his production values are something that sort of sets him apart from most of us out there in motovlog world. They're pretty special. Check him out. But anyway, right, first things first.
Thanks.
What's your tipple? What you on?
I've got to be honest. I just went straight down the offie round the corner and just got 4 cans of San Miguel.
Nothing wrong with that, right? Chin. Cheers. Here's to you.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know.
Slags.
What's your thoughts on the sort of craft ale situation? Is it getting out of hand now?
I just don't care. I don't really care. I've started drinking Brewdog just because they're from up near where I grew up, and now people just people that follow the channel have started sending me crate loads of Brewdog, so I've got loads of it to drink in the podcast. So Brewdog aren't interested, but people have kept me supplied in Brewdog, so I just drink that. I like it. It's all right.
Do you think you'll get to the point where you're sick of it or not?
What, Brewdog? No, I don't think so.
If people continually send you,
I'm Scottish. I'll drink whatever anyone sends me. So I don't think I'd get sick of it. The only time I drink really is on the podcast, to be honest. So I'll probably have, in a sort of 3-hour podcast, I'll probably have 3 or 4 beers, and then that's generally me until the next podcast the following week. So unless I start doing daily podcasts, I should be all right. But
that's gonna liver transplant from too many podcasts.
What about yourself? What would you normally drink? Anything and everything?
Oh,
no?
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind. Don't mind a bit of beer, obviously. Mm-hmm. Don't really care if it is craft or just a kind of Carlsberg, to be honest.
Yeah. Cold and wet.
I'm a bit like, I'm starting to get a bit kind of wearied of the whole craft ale situation. I like a whiskey, I like a brandy, I like a port, and then a glass of wine with dinner. And even my mother-in-law's staying with us at the moment, and her family has kind of like a strong naval background, and apparently a cure for seasickness is half brandy, half port.
Jesus.
So I've had a few of those in my time.
Is that just because it knocks you out, or does it actually genuinely work?
I mean, it does. I've never actually had it on a boat. I've just had it on dry land.
And you didn't get seasick, so it must work.
Exactly. It's magic. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Awesome. Right. If you've watched podcast sort of stuff before, you'll know the general format. Post it up on social media, people submit the questions, and we go through them and see where it takes us. Might be about bikes,
Sounds
it might
good.
be about motovlogging, it might be about anything and everything, to be perfectly honest. So if you're happy with that, shall we crack on?
That's fine by me, yeah.
Awesome. Generally, believe it or not, 2 or 3 hours, we hardly even get through the Patreon questions normally. Maybe start teetering into the Instagram ones. So there's quite a few questions here, so we'll see how we get on.
That's good.
Right, first one. Patreon, we'll always go to the clan first, so patreon.com/TeapotOne. First one is Pete English. He's a staple of the podcast. If you had the ability to erase something that you did in the past, what would it be?
Bloody hell, that's a bit deep.
Straight in, have that, yeah.
What, motorcycling or kind of YouTube related?
Up to you, anything at all. Anything.
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's plenty of videos. I mean, you'll probably feel like the same where like, if you look back at the first videos that you published and you sort of think, oh heck, I wish that. I mean, I've unlisted a few. I don't know if you've ever done that.
Yeah, there's been a couple that I have, just because they were like 240 resolution. They were terrible. Like filmed on like a Nokia 3310 or whatever it was. They were terrible. So yeah, I got rid of them.
I mean, even to an extent, the video that I published today, I wish I hadn't published.
That's the SRS one, wasn't it? The electric.
Yeah, exactly. And I saw you wrote that recently as well. So I had that bike for a week, and English Electric Motor Company representing.
Saw that. Yeah.
Brilliant to work with, and they let me have it for a week, and they were coming to pick it up on the Monday night. And with having a day job and family, I just have to fit it in when I can. But I had the Monday off, so I went out and rode around Kent for the whole day, and I was like, I'll get all the footage in the bag.
Yeah.
So I parked up in like a field in Kent somewhere. It was like halfway down the green lane, and I was like, I'll do my piece to camera here, and then I'll go out and get some riding footage. And I was like, just got the tripod set up and everything. And then this guy randomly, just on a mountain bike, cycled up and just started chatting to me. And he was showing me some drawings that he'd done, like some sketches in his notebook. And I was like,
what?
Mate. And he just wouldn't go away. So I had to ride off and find somewhere else. So I had to go and charge the bike. So I went and sat in the car park in Rochester, charging the bike. That took a while. Had to wait for someone else to use the charger. So it was getting quite late. I think it was like, it must have been 3:30. And I thought, I've got an hour, and then I probably need to get back for family, for dinner, bath time, bedtime, all that. And then Alec was coming to pick the bike up. Found this beautiful spot, lovely little field, nice view across the fields, nobody really coming by to bother me, but I'd been on the bike all day and I was like, I'm busting for a piss. So I went into a bush and did the, whatever, came back, clipped the mic on, did the whole thing, one take. I thought it'd come out brilliant. And I packed all my stuff up and I was like, I'm glad that's done. Finally, I've got it in the bag. Just about to hop on the bike, look down, and my flies were down for the whole piece to camera. And I literally had to go and just get back because I had to do stuff with my family, and then the bike was getting back. There's no chance to reshoot. So if you watch that video today that I published, all of the bits where I'm talking to the camera, I'm flying low. So I wish, Pete, I could delete that or redo it or something. But I felt like I can't have a bike for a week and not publish anything, so it just has to go up.
I was exactly this. Well, not that I let my fly down that I know of, but when I had the SRS, I had it for about 4 or 5 days, I think, maybe a week. Yeah. But I was just so busy with loads of other stuff, I didn't get the opportunity to ride it. And I was the same. I was like, right, he was coming to pick it up Sunday night, and I thought, Saturday, I've got to get out on this bike. And it was dinging it down with rain. It was right at sort of the end of lockdown. And And I was thinking, where can I go in the southeast of England that's not going to be busy? And obviously everyone was out and about, so all the roads were full.
Yeah.
I went to Buell Water thinking I'd get the nice artistic shots. Well, it was rammed full. I couldn't get anywhere near it, and you weren't allowed to fly a drone or anything there. I was like, well, this is just a washout. But I know I've done the vid. I don't know what it's like, but I did it. Published it.
Yeah, it's very difficult, isn't it? I think obviously get my tiny violin out and play myself a sad song. But quite often, you post a picture on Instagram and you're like, oh, I've got this bike, and you want to kind of show the bikes you're riding and get questions about them to answer in your videos and all that kind of thing. And quite often people say, oh, like, you lucky bastard sort of thing with all these bikes. I don't think people realise, like, a day of filming, there's not actually that much riding, and it is quite hectic. And you don't actually get, with some of the bikes that you get, it's not just riding around and enjoying yourself a lot of the time. You actually have to sort of schedule it all in, and it can become quite stressful one of those days. Definitely,
yeah. And especially the sort of footage that you produce, the production values that you do, whether ride-bys and your sound's professional, you can tell there's a lot of effort gone into it. And traditional motovlogging, where you've just got a camera on the side of your lid and off you go, chat bollocks whilst you're riding on a bike. The second you start introducing other aspects of it, off-bike camera footage, ride-bys, all that sort of stuff, then one little ride-by, 10 seconds, that can be 20 minutes, half an hour of your time, can't it? Just to set the camera up, get the shot, ride by, do another little ride by, pack everything up.
Yeah.
What is that? First world problems.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, I fully recognise that. Like, look, there's worse things definitely that have happened to other people. But I think, yeah, you're right. It's about how do I maximise my time within a given day. Yeah. And I always try and think like, yeah, what's the biggest production value I can give this video within the time constraints? And also, like, most of the times I go and pick a bike up, I'm riding there, or if I'm taking one of my press bikes out into Kent, I'm riding, of course. So it's like, what can I fit in a backpack? So smallest drone possible, smallest tripod, smallest mic setup, everything's as compact as it can be, and then just try and kind of fit it all in. And what I've found is, like, a lot of the time lately, Tim from Rarefied Road, I think I was just mentioning before we recorded, we do a podcast together called the Full Tank Motorcycle Podcast.
I'll check that out.
We both have our own channels, and what we kind of do a lot of the time now is I'll get two press bikes, and then we'll just he'll ride over and we'll just take the two bikes out, and then we'll review both bikes each in one day. So it's a super efficient way to do it. Absolutely. But what's great about it for me is, like, I can just I get him to do the flybys. I don't know if people really notice. I mean, it's clearly not me in the video doing the flybys. It's a different person with a different bunch of gear on. I mean, even the helmet's obviously different. But what it means is we can find a stretch of road, and I'm like, Tim, you ride that bike up and down, and I'll get these shots, and then I'll send the drone up and I'll say, ride this way, and then take that right turn, and then come back that way, and then get on the other bike and do the same. I don't even need to bring the drone down.
Nice.
I'll leave it up there, and he'll jump on the other bike. And so we've really got this kind of well-oiled machine now, where we go out and we get loads of footage, and then we don't share all the stuff. But stuff like flybys and drone stuff, I'll Google Drive over to him. But really, like the motovlog in and the pieces to camera and that kind of stuff, we do our own thing to try and make it distinct, but share some of those kind of
the sort of B-roll
higher quality
type
assets.
Stuff. Yeah.
And it's really, it's really fun as well doing it. And I think the best thing about it is going out and riding with someone else who is also into making videos. Because, like I said, in an 8-hour day of filming, an hour or two is good riding, realistically, we've found. And if you go out with someone who's just like, oh, I'd love to come and see how you make a video or whatever, or just go out for a ride together, if in 8 hours they've only got 1 or 2 hours of riding, they're going to be well fed up. So you need someone else who's also happy.
Their expectations
to mess
are on level with yours. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I noticed that the last couple of vids that I've watched of yours, I've seen Tim in there as well, and I've seen that it's him that's doing the ride by and you're doing the filming. I was like, that's a really handy way of doing this. Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
As I tend to just go.
Yeah,
Sorry, go on.
Well, yeah, like I say, we're always just trying to think of ways to make it more and more efficient. So we'll go on Street View before we go out riding and try and find like a little spot. And we had the R9T and the Africa Twin, which are just two bikes you can't really compare. Yeah. So we had to find somewhere that you can kind of, so I'll be doing a piece to camera, and we found a little off-road kind of green lane loop. So I'll do a piece to camera with the R9T, and then Tim will go off and ride do a bit of motor vlogging on the Africa Twin, and then bring it back, and then he'll do a bit to camera or get some B-roll while I ride off. So it's like really like jigsaw puzzling the day together. But yeah, anyway, sorry, what were you going to ask before I butted in?
I can't remember. That's half a can of beer. Yeah, it's like when I don't really, I mean, I do have friends that are into filming, but none of them really do the whole off-bike B-roll type ride-by footage. You know, Lamb Chops, I mean, he's not close to me, but we could easily meet up. But he's pretty much a traditional moto vlogger, and then he'll do his own little beauty shots for the bike, but he doesn't do much ride-by type stuff. The only one I can think of would be Richie Vida, but he's based right up, sort of up towards the Peak District, so it's a bit of a trek to go and do some filming.
Well, next time me and Tim are out, because you're in Kent, aren't you?
I am, mate. Yeah. I'm down the road from you, actually, to be honest.
Well, you'll have to join us next time.
I would love to. I mean, I would love to.
3 people, that's very efficient. All of us will just have Tim riding around.
Yeah. I could tell you what, I could do a vid on how you make a video if you wanted to share your secrets. It's up to you.
Oh, yeah.
And I could film you two filming.
Yeah.
Well, we could chat about that afterwards. You know, there's some certain things you'll want to keep to yourself, I'm sure. But we could have a chat, see what we could do. That would be cool to do something like that.
There's no dark secrets. I'm more than happy to share. In fact, like one thing I did on Instagram recently was I just put a post out like, does anyone who's got a smaller channel, let's say less than like 10,000 subs, want to do just an hour video call and chat about your channel? Just because I've got some ideas about potentially how to grow my channel quicker and kind of thinking about how other people are struggling with their channels, and I found them really useful. And I think the more I share with other people, I think I did about, in a week, I did 5, one each day. Wow. And just chatted to some other people with like motorcycle channels. And like the more I share with them and they kind of ask questions, the more you kind of develop your own knowledge, you know, and you start thinking about what someone asks you a question about, well, how do you get these shots? And you really kind of mull it over and think about how you could do it better and that kind of thing. So, I'd love to do something like that where we talk more about, you know, how we film and that sort of thing. You know?
Awesome. So that could be a good idea for a vid, that, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I was gonna bring this up later on, really, about, you know, how you've grown your channel and stuff, but I suppose now is as good a time as ever, really. Like, for me, I didn't realise you've actually been around for quite a while, haven't you? You've had a channel going for quite a while, I believe.
Yeah. Well, what, 4 years maybe?
Yeah, so... But you only really... you only appeared on my horizon, I think, towards the end of last year. Or beginning of this year. It's just all of a sudden you started showing up on the YouTube page.
I went from about 7,000 subs at the beginning of the year to about, I don't know, like 70 by the end of last year. And
wow.
It was a big leap. I mean, you know, in YouTube terms, there are people who've put 1 million subs on in like a month or whatever. But in terms of motorcycling and what's possible there, it was relatively quick. I think because I was really focusing on, well, to be honest, I was really just finding my feet for the first couple of years, focusing on my own bike and doing mods and those kinds of things. But, you know, for the first year, I had a Kawasaki ER6N. And, like, it was an old bike. No one has them. No one's interested in modding those. So those videos are always going to be very niche. And then I bought a Street Twin, which I still have now. Started to get more views because it was a relatively new bike and it's Triumph's best-selling modern classic. So then it started to pick up, and then it was when I started to kind of cover other bikes based off that. So I think probably one of the first videos that I made that did really well was when a bunch of dealers at the dealer conference, Triumph dealer conference, leaked pictures of the Speedtwin.
Yeah.
Because I'd noticed covering the Street Twin, a lot of people in the comments were saying, if only they did a 1200, it'd be an amazing bike. Something a bit more modern looking than a T120.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I saw those leaked pictures, I was like, I've got to make a video. This is what
people want.
A lot of people have been asking for.
Yeah.
So and then I was like, oh right, okay, I can make videos about stuff that's coming up and leaked stuff, and then I really hit it very hard that year, and I just continued, and then it blew up, and then. I wouldn't say it's tailed off so much this year, but I don't have as much time for making videos, having 2 kids, day job. So I'm just keeping it going and just trying to not stress about, every spare hour.
It takes over your life, man, doesn't it? YouTube can just totally just take over. You become obsessed with it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Which is, the beauty of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because there's a reason it's so addictive. It's really fulfilling to be in control of like making a whole video yourself, publishing it, and then seeing how it does. And then the interactions as well with people who watch the videos. Yeah. That really makes it, well, not all of the interactions, but most of them.
Yeah.
They really make it worthwhile, the good ones anyway. So it's really easy to see how it becomes quite addictive. But the problem when you've got a day job and then kids is you'll work all day. You'll then, go make dinner, put the kids to bed, and then 8 o'clock or so do 2 or 3 hours of YouTube if you can be bothered.
Yeah.
And I find if I do that, I'll get to, sort of bedtime-ish later on, and my head's just spinning.
Yep.
I'm still thinking about what I was doing, and I think I've started to learn this year, you really, especially now we've got 2 kids, our youngest 6 months old, you can't even just hand off. Like, we both need to be, looking after them. I've really realized you need a bit of downtime in the evenings to wind down. You can't every night just be YouTubing. So that's why I'm trying not to stress myself too much about creating videos. Like the SRS video today was like the first one in a couple of weeks, but there's just not any point in driving yourself mad with it.
Absolutely not. No. And I think you've obviously, like you said last year, you put a hell of a lot of graft in to build that channel, and you've got the momentum behind you, and you've got a hell of a solid foundation now. Anyway, it's not like you can't take your foot off the gas for weeks and weeks and weeks, but you can afford yourself to just chill and take time when you need to have time. And you find, I do anyway, that if I don't put a video out for a couple of weeks because maybe I'm away on a trip or just something comes up and you just can't put a vid out, as long as you say to people, really sorry, some things have come up, can't get a vid out. In fact, just about everybody messages me going, don't worry about it. There's plenty of content for us to be looking at. Just chill, come back when you're ready. Family comes first. And people understand, don't they?
I think also, people really don't appreciate when maybe you've got a quiet few weeks where you don't have press bikes and there's not really anything to talk about, and you start sort of grasping for things to make videos about. I think people would really rather you don't put videos out unless you've got something really good. So that feeling that you have to be creating all the time, it's not always that helpful. I think only publish stuff when you feel capable of putting your best into it, and also when you've got something good to talk about. So
true, very true.
But I mean, I've got a question for you as well, because obviously I know about your whole circumstance, and now you're obviously full time. But like, how's that? I guess that's always on my radar. Is sort of it becoming a career. Have you found yourself able to time box it a little bit better now, and it feels more like a day job, Or is it still like all consuming and you fill every hour? Do you know what I mean?
I am still at that point where it literally takes up every single waking second of my life. 7 days a week, probably 16 to 18 hours a day. I'm editing.
Wow.
I spend most of my life editing, to be honest, because I've got such a backlog. I've got content from trips last year that I still haven't edited. So any time where maybe it is a little like during COVID and stuff, during the whole lockdown thing, when we couldn't get out, it was, in all honesty, it was perfect for me because I had this massive backlog of loads of trips that I had to get through. So I could just sit and just bang out trip vid after trip vid after trip vid and really sort of, clear the deck, so to speak. And I've still got a couple of trips. Yeah. I've still got some trips from last year that I need to work on. Almost to the point now where people are saying to me, "You've not done a trip vid in a while," because I've been doing a lot of reviews and these accessory. I bought this new bike, so I'm putting loads of toys on it. So I'm doing obviously best bike in the world. Yeah, so I've been doing.
Stop you there.
Go on. This will come up, but go on then. What's your best bike in the world?
Triumph Speedtwin. Obviously.
I ran over one of them actually up in the Lake District. Did you see? I don't know if you've seen it. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I had a meetup. I do these meetups with my Patreon sort of community, and we did a meetup.
He ran over a patron.
He wasn't a patron actually. His brother followed the channel as it turned out. But we were out on this ride, and I was leading the group, and we just started the really good twisty roads up in the Lake District. Came up behind this chap on a street twin, and he was toddling along at like 40 in a national. So as we came round the corner, I pulled out and went for the overtake, and as I sort of just got almost alongside him, he rolled off the throttle, and I thought, "Oh, what are you doing?" Because there was a cottage on the right, but in my head I thought we're going too fast for him to be going in that cottage, so I'll do the overtake. And as he rolled off, I thought, "Oh shit, he's going to do a last minute right." So I moved in behind him thinking he'd turn right, and he slammed the brakes on because he said there was a...
Oh my goodness.
Well, there was. He said, "Oh, there's a pheasant up ahead." So I braked, and when I looked at the footage, you could see about 30 yards ahead there's a pheasant at the side of the road. But it's not like it was in the middle of the road. But anyway, so I rear-ended him, and I was like, "Oh." That was the end of that. Yeah.
What was the damage on your bike?
I needed a new front. I had needed a new fork, new front wheel, new front, basically new front of the GS, and his was written off, sadly. So, but he was all right. Thankfully, he was okay. He was a bit battered and bruised.
Yeah, that's
he was
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I felt terrible. God, I felt terrible. Jeez. Anyway, never mind.
just one of those things, isn't it?
I've had a horrendous couple of years. Just a horrendous couple, to the extent where I started to think to myself, what, this plainly me, because I'd had like 3 or 4 accidents in the space of 3 or 4 years, all commuting in South London until the pheasant issue, and I was just like, what am I doing different? What am I doing different to what I used? Because I've been doing it for 10 years, never had a single problem, and it's like, well, what am I doing different? I was riding slower than ever, but I was like, I must be doing something different. I don't know what it is. Anyway, never mind. Right, we finished half of question 1. That's not bad in 40 minutes.
Oh,
hey! Change your batteries. We're back in the room. Right, we might have to pick the pace up a little bit.
Yeah. How many questions have you got to get through?
Oh my God. Sheesh. I think there's maybe 20 odd on Patreon. Then there's 19 on Instagram, and then the ones you sent through, and I haven't even looked at Facebook or anything yet. So yeah,
the ones I sent through, I answered a few of them because I always get like street twin questions. So I'll deal with those on Instagram.
No problem.
If we get time, we can talk about that. But
yeah, no worries.
Yeah, I'm sure you get a lot of GS questions at the moment.
Also, I mean, people. I think, yeah, I get more abuse than anything. To be good-natured abuse, but abuse nonetheless for the GS. But okay, I don't care. Whatever. I used to slag GSs off till I rode one. So. Yeah. Right, Pete, let's go back. Pete's question: erase something that you did in the past. What would it be? For me, geesh, there's things I'm not proud I've done. There's things that were horrendous to go through, But it makes the person you are, doesn't it? And I think as long as I've learnt from it, I've grown from it, and I'm happy with what I've did, or what has happened. So I'll keep things the way they are, Pete, to be honest. Would you rather lose all your old memories or never be able to make new ones? Jesus. Pete, I swear Pete smoked something before he writes these questions. They're deep. Lose old memories or never be able to make new ones?
Well, like I said, my daughter's 2.5 and my son's 6 months, so I'll lose the old ones because, they got it in front of them, and even in 2 years or whatever, it's there's been plenty, so I'm sure there's plenty to come.
Good answer, man. Good answer. I'm liking that. Sheesh, me, crikey. See, there's so much I've gone through that I wouldn't want to forget about. Sorry to bring it up, but my world trip, I would hate to forget all about that. Jeez. I would say keep all my old memories, and then I'll still be doing stuff. I just won't remember it as I move on. But at the time, I'll remember it, won't I? So that's a bit like now anyway. Yeah. I forget about stuff as soon as it happens. Right, that'll be me then. Next one. Question 2. Question 2. Simon Beale, what is your biggest motorcycling regret? Over to you.
Motorcycling. These are, honestly...
Not what you were expecting.
Straight away. Yeah, I know. All mine are should I buy a T120 instead of a Street Twin or whatever? You know what I mean? Or what are the best tyres?
Yeah.
I need to change my tyres. What are they? What's my biggest motorcycling regret? I mean, it's difficult. I don't know. What's yours? Go first, because
motorcycling regret. Blimey.
I mean, I've only been riding it 4 or 5 years.
Have you?
I didn't learn when I was younger. My dad was a biker when he was one of 3 lads, and my granddad was a motorcycle mechanic in the army. His dad was a biker as well, so it's been in the family, forever. And I always used to go out on the back of my dad's bike, but when I was a teenager, I spent all my money on guitars and stuff because I was well into playing music. I didn't spend it all on booze or anything like that. Some of it, and then the rest on guitars. And
then the rest you wasted.
Yeah, that's the classic, isn't it? And then, when it becomes so expensive to learn, it's quite, you look at a bike and you're like, oh, you can get a decent starter bike for $1,000, and then you look at getting a license, you look at getting a helmet and a jacket and some gloves and some boots and some insurance and where am I going to keep it? And
it's not a cheap form of transport, is it? No.
So then, I put it off, and then finally I was like, I'm just going to have to do it, God, why was I saying that?
Biggest motorcycle
I got
regret.
it now. So I don't have a lot of regrets. I've still got a clean license as well, which is quite something. There's been a few moments where I thought that's on the line.
We need to work on that.
Yeah, I saw you also rode the Bru Time 1000 RR.
Yeah.
And coming back from where I was filming, I found a really nice road around that area. Riding back to Crazy Horse, I was like, I've got all the footage in the bag. I can just ride back
have some fun.
Yeah, enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even that, actually. I was riding through sort of like a little village.
Yeah.
Well, it was sort of between villages, and all of a sudden I saw one of those camera vans, which I'm just not used to, mate, because I mainly ride in London and that does not exist here. So, whenever you go out to Wales or I go and see my parents, I went up and did a ride up in sort of Lancashire over to Yorkshire Dales with my dad, and there were loads of them, and I can see why they're the blight of motorcyclists, but they're not a thing for me. You don't really get them that much in Kent, but certainly in London, you never see them.
No.
So it was a bit of a surprise to me, but any other bike, shut the throttle. I think I was doing about, I don't know, maybe 40, something like that.
Yeah.
And I think, surprisingly, I was sort of between villages, but it was still 30.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure. But honestly, the traffic was just moving like whatever. And I shut the throttle and just nothing happened, no engine braking. And I remembered immediately, I'd just been on camera cycling through, the settings and engine braking was on low. And basically, it just carried on going.
Oh,
and I was
did
like,
it? Oh, no.
I was like, by the time I realized, I was like, oh my God, I've just come through. But I think nothing's shown up, and that was about a month ago.
Yeah,
so.
they were having a cup of tea. I wouldn't worry about it. It's probably nobody in it.
Well, I think, exactly. You know what? It was hardly the most rock and roll moment in my life. It was literally like pooping along, and I was like, nothing.
It's not like 186 miles an hour past a 50 or something. No.
No, it wasn't really.
That Brutale, that is such a weird bike. I think it's gorgeous. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I loved it, but it's the most impractical road bike I think I've ever ridden. It just did absolutely nothing till about 80, 90 mile an hour at sort of 8,000 revs. And then, oh my good God, it just turned into this utter maniac. And it was like the best bike in the world, but you're going to die or go to jail very quickly.
Yeah. I've really stayed away from sports bikes and stuff. I think... my riding experience, I ride a lot, so hopefully I'm picking up experience quickly. But, I'll leave the latest Panigale or whatever to like Nisi at MCN or someone like that. That's where I'll watch that video to find out what that's like. But yeah, I just don't really see how I can cover a bike like that to its full capacity. I think it needs to go on the track. Or the Autobahn. That's it. And even a lot of the tech, I like covering adventure bikes. I might not necessarily be able to go across Europe every time I get a press bike that's an adventure bike. But a lot of the tech is focused on like navigation and comfort, those sorts of things. Whereas a lot of the tech on sports bikes, like cornering ABS, cornering traction control, wheelie control, launch control, which I did try on the Brutale.
Yeah.
But a lot of that stuff, you're only going to be able to test it when you're literally about to crash it.
Yeah. And you can't test it. You can't test it at road legal speeds. That's the problem. And with my history in this channel, is I've realised, even though I'm not part of the old bill anymore, whoever it was that had the little gripe against me still is watching. I've had it fed back.
Oh, really?
They're still watching. So I know I need to watch what I'm doing on the channel because,
What's your strategy now? Is it to edit that stuff out? Is it to...
Do you know, I've changed as a rider a lot. I think I did my police bike course not long before I left, to be honest, and that's changed me as a rider in that I've slowed down a lot. I'll still go for road riding. I'll still go quick in the nationals, but I'll go nowhere near as quick as I used to ride, and I'm always erring on the side of caution, which I used to think I did, but I think having a couple of instances where perhaps I've spoke about this before, where I've not reacted as quick or in the way I thought I would react. I've thought, I'm okay at this speed for this bend because if anything happens, I'll do this or I'll do that, and I can brake, I can slow, I can avoid. But that one time when you go around that corner and there is something there, I've not been able to react the way I thought I could. So that has sort of been a massive reality check in terms of my own abilities. So that's slowed me down now. And now I just sort of... The way I look at it now for the YouTube content in particular, I can only test a bike within the realms of everyday usage on camera. Obviously, I'm going to enjoy myself off camera, but I'm not going to include that in the footage anymore. I used to, but I won't now. But I can give you my viewpoint on how that bike reacts at certain times. But I'm just not going to be filming it, including it in the footage anymore. You know what I mean? I'm not. This is my livelihood now, so I'm not going to leave myself out there for the 1 in 10,000th person who's a complete and utter fuckwit and wants to, end my career effectively, which has happened in the past. So that's changed. That's changed me, definitely. I'm aware of the possible implications that can come from what you put online. Whereas before it was like the Wild West, when it's like, fuck it, yes, have some fun, blur it out, you'll be okay. But not anymore. That's not the way things work anymore.
I've got to be honest though, like, I haven't put the video out yet, but one of the bikes that I enjoyed the most recently was the Husqvarna Vitpillen.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful looking bike.
Yeah, it is. But also, was it 75 horsepower or so, about 150 something kilograms. And I think if you're on the road, like, I felt like I could still ride it pretty hard.
Yeah.
And really enjoy riding it. And also I was, motovlogging that part as well. And I felt like I could really express myself as like, this is great to ride. But looking down at the speedo, there might be a few occasions where I might have to cut to the handlebar camera that's pointing at me, which is sometimes convenient.
I don't know what you mean.
Yeah, sometimes it just happens,
Sometimes it's just the best shot.
Yeah, exactly. But it was one of the rides, that was one where me and Tim took 2 bikes out, actually. We took the F900R, which is actually still with me, behind me here.
Oh, yeah.
And we took the Vitpillen as well. And it was one of the best rides I've had for ages. We went up to Essex and found one really good twisty road, and I just thought, this is brilliant. And I think there's a real sweet spot of power, which is probably up to about 100, where you can really rinse it still on the road without getting into massive trouble. I think for people reviewing bikes on the road, it certainly helps me to focus on those bikes more than the hyper kind of sports bikes and stuff. And anything basically, I think I'm more comfortable reviewing than a proper sports bike. I'd like to change that. If I was full time, I think I'd spend a bit more time on the track and try and book in track days. And then
would you?
I've done a couple of bits. I think also doing a bit more off-roading, perhaps trying to find environments where you can properly off-road bikes. It's really difficult. I mean, you'll know, around Kent.
Yeah, there are some green lanes around here. There are some green lanes.
They're short though, aren't they?
Yeah,
quite short.
I've actually got a little off-roader coming my way, and I'm sort of renowned for not hatred, but I have this sort of loathing for off-roading because I don't know what I'm doing. So I've specifically gone out there and sourced this little off-roader to take myself off-road. And I've got Mr. Fish, official Mr. Fish, John. He's going to come and give me a hand. So we're going to hit the green lanes and see what carnage ensues. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was never mad about it. I mean, I used to mountain bike a lot, but that's a very different... I mean, it has some similarities, but obviously the amount of power you've got on weight of a motorcycle. But I went to English Electric, actually. One of the things that really got me into it was up at their kind of they're on a farm with a warehouse. And did you go?
I've still never been. No, I've not been yet. I keep meaning to go up.
So they've got a few electric off-roaders, and they've built their own motocross track. It's taken a while to get it into shape, but it was in really bad shape when I first went. There's stuff growing out of it. It was more like sand and hard packed.
Yeah.
But I just razzed round it for an hour on a couple of electric bikes, and I was like, this is brilliant. I was rubbish, Everybody who watched the video pointed out I was rubbish as well in the comments, which is fair enough. But I loved it, and I also did a day riding with Off the Curb, who do green laning in Surrey. You go down there,
Right.
they've got sort of Fantic enduro bikes, that kind of thing anyway, and they literally give you like a massive pair of waterproofs that are all ripped from everyone else's worn them. And you just go off out into the Surrey Hills, and they know some really good lanes in that. But when I went, it absolutely tipped it down. And it was thick mud, like proper thick mud, which is pretty much the hardest thing to start on. And a lot of these lanes are rutted. So there's a lot of kind of angles that you're riding along, and then the mud just slides down them, and the front end's going everywhere. And a lot of deep water as well. Like straight through these deep puddles, but it was a proper baptism of fire. And the more I did stuff like that, the more it got me into finding these little green lanes around Kent, and now I just want to spend more time doing it. But obviously, if you're working, it's hard, and then weekends are for family stuff. It's hard to find the time. So I'd love to create a bit more time for it, and I think it is. I've got to say, like the ultimate lesson in bike control and sort of knowing
Absolutely.
the bike.
Yeah, 100%. All you need to do is look at the MotoGP riders. What do they do for training? Well, they go off-road, they enduro. So, you know.
A sort of a really great experience was I went on the Tiger 900 launch in Morocco.
Wow.
And it was a hell of an experience. Like, a few of the guys the journalists that I met before that had talked about the previous Tiger launch in Morocco, and said that's up there with like the sort of best trips, because you do a day on the road, a day off road, and then a day on the road back to where you first started.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of the time a launch trip might be just one day of riding, whereas this is you're out there for 4 or 5 days basically. And that was a lot of off road as well, and they got the guys from the Adventure Centre in Wales out there to supervise the day of off-roading. Yeah. And it was just incredible. And seeing the way that they can ride was really inspiring. It really makes you want to get that good. And I don't know if you know, but they've done a bit of a Bond tie-in recently. So the Tiger and the Scrambler, I think, are going to be in the next Bond film, which has been postponed. It's out in November.
Yes, yeah, I did see. Looks really good.
So on the Tiger 900 launch in Morocco, they had the two stuntmen from the Bond films. Yeah, out there.
Nice.
And they can ride, like, big time. And their careers, basically, they were motocross riders, and then I think he got injured or just, not really feeling it, and got an opportunity to go and do a film. Yeah. And then never looked back. So, yeah. I think it is, that's where you learn to ride. So that's what I want to do more of. And hopefully, from the sounds of things, if you've got a little off-roader on the way.
Well, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I've got a vid coming out a week tomorrow, which is my first ever proper off-roading. I did it down in Spain with my mate Lyndon at his place, Toro Trail. So he took me out on these Husky 350s, and that video is my first ever experience of off-road, and I was so far out of my comfort zone, it's frightening. But the next day, I went out with another one of his guides, Adrian, and we went out on the big GSs, which I thought was going to be road stuff. So I was like, I've done the off-road, just let me out on the road now on the GS. But unbeknown to me, Lyndon had a word with Adrian and said, take him off-road on the GS. So we're riding around these beautiful mountain tarmac roads, and then all of a sudden Adrian just turned off and went up one of the fire roads. I was like, you saucy bugger, where are we going? So we ended up spending the day off-road on these tracks, and I genuinely loved it. Just the GS felt on the wee Huskies, I couldn't get my balance right, and editing, I could plainly see what the problem was. I was in too high a gear, so I was like in second where I should have been in third or maybe even fourth. So when I'm stood up trying to balance on this bike, any movement of the throttle and the bike's going like that, so it's either throw me off the back or throw me over the front, and I just couldn't get the balance right. Whereas on the big tractor, I just felt much more much more sort of balanced, and I could handle the bike better. So I genuinely, I enjoyed that.
Have you ever watched much of Moto Trek?
No, never heard of that.
It's so good.
Moto Trek.
Excellent. Yeah, I think I've got the name right. Let me double check.
No worries.
Before I send all of your... but basically, it was it's a bit of a weird style of video. It's, that's the one. 150,000 subs. So It's not necessarily unknown. But if you want to know about how to ride an adventure bike, this is it. Now, they used to have this guy called Zach, I think, who... I don't know if the guy that produces these videos kind of fell out with him or whatever, but he's this amazing instructor. They've got a new guy now and he's equally good, so It's still worth watching. But really, that was one of the places that I got a lot of great information about riding off-road. So I think, when I first started riding off-road, you're always taught on the road, like lean your body and give your bike some clearance.
Yeah.
But really about, when you're riding off-road, you're leaning the bike, staying upright, and then using the edges of the tires. And they go into a lot of detail on all of those techniques, and it's great. The weird thing about it is the music is just plain jazz drums.
Is it?
Yeah. It'll just start and it'll be jazz drums. There's no other instruments, and it works really well. It's distinctive, and they're really, really well produced. Definitely check that out.
Moto Trek.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Right, I'll leave some links down below as well then, folks. Check that out. Did we actually... Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was going to say, they've only ever published 85 videos.
He's got 150,000 subs. I hate them.
That's the quality of them. To your 221 videos, yeah.
Who are I am?
And then my...
Jesus.
Yeah, wow. 221 videos, and my 234. And I've unlisted a lot of bad ones as well. So.
I have as well. I've made quite a few of mine private now, but I will. Did we answer Simon's question? What is your biggest motorcycling regret? I don't know if we did. I can't remember. Did we answer it, Simon?
I said I don't have too many. Is what I said. I don't think because I don't.
I think for me, motorcycling regret. I wish. Sorry to bring it up. I always get abuse for this. I wish I'd spent longer on my round the world trip, because I look back and it was quite rushed, and there's plenty of places that I wish I'd spent a bit longer in and maybe done a little bit more exploring in. At the time I thought, I can come back here. I'll be able to come back here. But will I? I don't know if I ever will. So, yeah. That's probably... I don't like having regrets, and that's probably the only thing I can think of is just I wish I'd spent longer.
When I originally heard the question, I was more thinking around, like, regrets of, like, pranging a bike or whatever. But if it's from that perspective, then yeah, definitely. I think like me and my wife, when I first got into biking and we were child-free and carefree, we used to just, and I couldn't even really ride, but we'd just like load the bike up and we'd just both jump on and we'd go here, there and everywhere on it, and we'd just set off and stay in pubs and have loads of beers and wake up the next day and just set off somewhere else. And we did a couple of great trips. I mean, the best trip that we always remember is in February, we went to Bruges. So we just blasted down the motorway.
It's a great little place, isn't it?
Yeah. We stayed near where you get the tunnel, woke up stayed in the pub, and then woke up the next day hungover, just rode to the Eurotunnel, and then you sit on the floor, don't you, in the tunnel while you're going through. And then it's only, like an hour or hour and a half maybe to Bruges, but we had to stop like 2 or 3 times because it was so cold. It was February.
Oh, and like hell.
It started snowing, and we were on the ER6N, so we had no wind protection. No
Why did you go in February? Maniacs.
We loved it. We just loved getting on the bike and going somewhere, and we were just like, let's book it in. Hopefully the weather won't be too bad.
Brilliant.
Because on the way back, like it was fine. But anyway, Bruges, and then Belgium beer is quite something. So we had a really good time, like eating, drinking, and then we came back. And I think it's easy to say now, but maybe before we had kids, we should have gone and done that every weekend, because it's not even that expensive, If you get a tent, and all you're paying for is fuel, basically, and you can go and see everywhere. And I remember even going down to like Suffolk. Just went to some really unusual places that we would have never gone to if we didn't have a bike. Like, have you ever been to Orford Ness?
Don't think so. Not as far as I'm aware.
It's like a little island off Suffolk. You get a ferry over. It's now a bird reserve, but it used to be a nuclear testing facility. So these really unusual
Wow.
It used to. There's like these concrete sort of structures and like weird bunkers and stuff, and you can just walk around it. But now, it's all like nature and stuff there, and it's really eerie and creepy. But it's very cool. Yeah, and like, when would we have ever gone there? No, and I think if I explored more of the country, maybe, as well as sort of like nearside Europe. I wish I'd done a bit more of that, because it's going to be a few years before me and my wife can jump on a bike and just clear off.
A pal of mine is going through your pain at the moment. He's got a couple of kids, but they're sort of halfway through that stage now. They're in the sort of, how old are Freddie and Ari? I think they're in the sort of 8 to 10 year range, or 7 to 9 years sort of age, and he's just finding, for about the last 7 to 9 years, I suppose, he's just found it very hard to find any time to come out on the bikes. He used to be out on the bike all the time, and he's really struggled now. Oh, you got to do your batteries. Back in a second.
You're saying your friend.
My mate
will seamlessly edit this. Your friend, he's halfway through it. Used to be out on the bike all the time. Not out so much now.
Yeah, and he's sort of now he's just starting to see the light on the horizon, and he's just like, the kids. Yeah. I think with my mate, he consciously always tries to do, whenever he's not working, he always tries to do something with the kids. So if he's home, then he wants to be doing an activity with the kids. He doesn't want them to just be sat doing nothing. He always wants, and we've said to him, sometimes you just need to, the kids might just need to be sat in front of the TV for a bit, just while you do something. But he's just like, nah, if I'm not working, I want to be involved with them. I don't know if that's maybe, I think he lost his dad when he was quite young, and I think he's just like, I want to do as much as I can with him when I can, and I get that. I totally understand that. But he does suffer. So like one week a year he gets away with us on the bikes, and then this year he's not been able to because of COVID. So.
well, this is it. I was going to say as well. Like, I try and have when I hear my daughter say, she's like 2.5, so she'll say to my wife or whatever, like, Daddy's always working, isn't he? But some days he can play with me. And you think, like, she's obviously looking forward to the weekend. And it breaks your heart a bit. And so I never really go biking at the weekends.
Do you not?
I just try and fit it around in the week. I've been, we've sort of not really got any holidays this year. So I've been using a lot of holiday days and then just getting like a full day of filming in. And my wife's on mat leave with the the babies, who's looking after both of them. But yeah, I can kind of empathise, with your friend. It is like you do want to give them everything, but what has made it difficult is the fact that I'm no longer commuting. That was a lot of the time I'll get all my videos on my commute. Yep. So, even having one kid, drop her at nursery, ride to work. But if I leave an extra quarter of an hour, half an hour, I can literally set the GoPro running and vlog the whole way to work, which was like a good 45-minute ride across London. And you get although it's not necessarily, we're talking about sports bikes and stuff, although it's not necessarily like high-octane cornering, as a moto vlog, it's good to watch because there's all sorts of
stuff going on.
You know, constant.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, almost the Royal Jordanian kind of. You know, I wouldn't go down that route myself, but that kind of idea, although I'm more talking about the bike, at least there's stuff always happening that you can kind of also talk about.
Yep.
And then if you've got that extra 15 minutes, half an hour, you can pull over, get the tripod out and get a bit of B-roll, and then you can edit that over your motor vlog, and then bang, it's done. And all you got to do is in the evening edit it. And even if you mess it up, you've got your commute home with that bike to kind of fit it in.
Yep.
But so that was like, what, an hour and a half every single day of riding where I could, you know, get a bit of vlogging done. But that's the challenge now is who knows when people will be back in the office. It doesn't look like anytime soon. And my commuting miles have certainly been cut down a lot. So it's tough to find the time now.
I feel
really
your
more
pain.
like conscious.
I mean, that was exactly the same. I used to be hour and a half commute each way every day. I used to work 7 days a week, so I was on the bike all the time. And now I've gone full time. I mean, I literally went out for a ride before this, and that's the first time I've ridden probably in a week. And that was just because I was like, shit, I've been given a new lid by LS2, and I was I need to do some footage of it. I've got to wear this lid on the bike and see what it's like. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, crap.
Yeah,
so
of course.
right, I've got an hour. Let's just use the Kali Moto app, generate a little random ride, and off I went. And I hardly get out on the bike now.
Do you miss riding in town? Because like
perversely, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. And I know other people who, you know, certain people who say, I hate riding in London, I would never do it. And then there are other people like, you know, I work quite a bit with the guys up at Triumph London, which is in Vauxhall. And the guy, Toby, I'm sure it was Toby who said this to me. He's like head of motorbikes for Triumph Group. So they've got like a bunch of dealers around London at Lind. He was saying, like, I love riding in London. And it's quite rare that you hear anyone say that to you.
Yeah.
And I feel the same.
It's sport.
Look, it's just like being at one with the traffic.
Yep.
And you've got to really ignore like lane markers and signs and stuff, because cars aren't really respecting that, and nor are the bikes, and nor are the cyclists. It's really about understanding the mentality of other people on the road and what they're likely to do next and whether they've seen you.
Law of the jungle, isn't it?
And honestly, I just really, really enjoy that a lot. And it's hard to review a bike doing that, because it's not about the bike, it's about the riding, whereas maybe the kind of quicker sort of riding is about the bike, or the off-road riding is a bit more about the bike. But for me, I thoroughly enjoy it, and I'd definitely miss it if I wasn't. I am missing it a lot at the moment. Anytime I go across town, I just love it.
But
definitely.
I find commuting sort of highlights some aspects of a bike, though, that, you know, it's the manoeuvrability. What's it like for manoeuvrability? Because you're doing a lot of slow speed stuff, you're not taking any body weight from the rush of the air, the wind turbulence that's going by you. So it's like, well, what's the seating position like? How bad are your wrists when you're in slow speed stuff, slow speed handling? What's your vision like? What's the turning circle like for manoeuvring around traffic? And I used to just use that as an opportunity to try all that stuff. And I definitely do miss it.
What would you say is the best city commuter that you've had?
People are going to hate me, and it's the GS. The GS is just, it's massive, so people see you. It's got it's like a black cab turning circle on it. So if you do muck up your sort of plan for how you're going to get through traffic and find yourself stuck, you literally can turn it on a dime and nip one, pearl one through traffic if you need to. It was brilliant. I really enjoyed it. I always used to do it on my Jigsaw Thou, and I used to love the Jigsaw Thou because it was nice and low, and the handlebars would fit underneath the wing mirrors, but it had no turning circle.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say about the GS, like,
because it's wide.
I can see what you're saying. Yeah, like I've had many an adventure bike, you know, to ride through town. But I've always thought it's good, but I'm quicker on a smaller bike, definitely through the traffic.
You developed the Gs Jiggle. If you watch a lot of the GS riders as they're going through traffic, you'll watch the hips and they sort of the Elvis little jiggle, and it's because you've got to try and time the traffic so that the cars just stagger each other, and then that way you can just flick it and sort of raise the handlebar to get over and then raise the other one. It's weird, but you watch the GS and the big adventure riders and you can tell the ones that commute all the time, because that's, you just see what they're doing, working their way through traffic. Right, well, this commuting brings us on to the next question. Nick Turnbull, question 3.
Question 3. We really
question 3,
need
an
to get a
hour
move on,
and
don't
10
we?
minutes in. What's MotoBob's...
We need to start filtering through.
It's what it's all about, though. It's conversation, isn't it? What's MotoBob's day job, and has he ever come across RJ whilst commuting in London? If you don't want to tell us what your job is, don't worry, you don't need to.
No, I do. I do kind of. I work with software engineers, so I sort of make decisions about what we build. I don't necessarily build them. But we make tools for journalists, and that's kind of what led me to getting into making my own content.
Right.
So we make tools that are similar to maybe like YouTube Studio. So I was like, well, how do I get to know what it's like to create content with data, you know, in mind? And so I started doing a little bit of YouTube, and then it kind of really grew. And I think it's, you know, it's dangerous territory when you start combining something you're passionate about with something you know a bit about. That's when we've already talked about it being addictive. And it really does become like you just get hooked, and so that's why it's really become a big part of my life. And you know, it's very difficult balancing the two as well, like doing a day job and then doing the YouTube stuff. As you get busier and as your channel grows, you get more and more offers to do stuff, and it's really tough at the moment to balance it. It's something that I'm definitely struggling with. Like I say, I've managed to find times where I can feel zen about it and just let YouTube be a side thing, and you know, feel peaceful about the fact that yes, I will miss videos that I couldn't produce. They've just gone and been and gone, like, especially because I do more news stuff. There are things that I don't cover that I definitely could have done. But it does get really hard when you get offers to go and do rides, or you know, certain bikes you've been waiting to ride, or events, and you can't find the time to do it. It's tough, you know, like to turn them down. So something that's a constant battle, I'm afraid. But the day job's great, and it's given me so much knowledge about that kind of field, and I'm very analytical about how I do YouTube as well.
Right.
I try not to be overly analytical. Like, I think good content comes from like passion and engaging with the audience. But also, you know, you don't want to be constantly publishing stuff that when you look at YouTube Studio, it just tells you this isn't doing well, you know. I mean, we've all done it. The thing that I can't get out of the habit of doing is like lower capacity learner bikes. They never do well for me. You look at the analytics for all of them, they never do well, but I love getting them to ride. And
but people
even
love
if I
them.
spend a whole day,
people love them.
It's more for maybe the kind of like the more engaged fans, but you just, you know, you'll spend a day filming and you'll look at the revenue from one of those videos and you can't really justify it. But I just feel like, you kind of need a sort of broader experience of like what's available on the market, and you want to bring new riders in as well, you know.
So, if you want to grow your channel, then the clear way to grow your channel is to do new bike reviews and just churn out new bike review, new bike review, new bike review, new bike review, and you will get a massive spike in subs. I've seen it in mine, and I know like people like Lamb Chops rides. John will do that. He'll do a little phase where he'll do review after review after review after review, and he'll churn out the vids, and you can see a nice big spike. and then it's back to what the channel sort of, a few trips, having some fun on the bikes, does that for a while, and then we'll do another churn of new bike review, and that sort of keeps everybody happy. But you have that little run of new bike reviews, which attracts new people in, which keeps the algorithm happy to see that there's fresh blood coming into the channel, and they're staying and they're watching and they're subscribing. But your established community gets what it wants, the reason it joined the channel. Like for me, it's trip vids. Mine was always just trip vids. So now, because I'm not doing many trip vids, my sort of established community are like, not seen a trip vid in ages. Or like my vids used to be 40-45 minutes long. Now I'm trying to make them 15-20, maybe 25 minutes long. And the old lot are like, it's a bit short, that vid. 20-minute vid on YouTube. That's like War and Peace, isn't it, on YouTube? But my community are like, you could double that.
You've got a much more like, I think I've seen something where you're talking about the fact that without Patreon, you couldn't really make a go of what you're doing. We're doing very different things. My content's way more focused on news and a lot of the stuff's voiceovers, so there's less personality, and I really rely on to make it worthwhile anyway, reach, because I don't really do Patreon or anything. I think with your stuff, it doesn't necessarily need to have that kind of like massive reach, because you're engaging that smaller audience.
Absolutely,
but even the fact that you get so many questions for your podcast and stuff, reflects how engaged they are with your stuff. So that's really cool. I guess the challenge is, and I've seen other channels that struggle with this, is like, and this is me in my kind of day job, like looking at YouTube and analysing what everyone's doing. But a great example, and a trap almost that I nearly fell into as well, was like, I talked about how I did a lot of mods videos. How far can you go with that? You buy one bike, you maybe get a few free parts sent to you, but some mods you have to buy, the ones you really want to do that they don't necessarily want to kind of sponsor you to do. And then you've done everything to the bike. And then what do you do now? You sell the bike, buy another one, and do mods on that. And, buying and selling bikes like that and buying parts, it doesn't pay for itself.
No.
And I've seen people sort of like customizing bikes, and it doesn't really pay for itself. And that's the trick with the trips as well, is like, if that's what you get known for, like, how do you keep doing that? And it seems like you've been morphing your content recently to try and find something that fits, and like succeeding, certainly with this podcast anyway. Like the comments I see about the podcast are great. So
it's weird, because the podcast doesn't make me a penny. I make no money. The views on the podcast aren't massive. The downloads are good. Looking at other podcasts of a similar age, I've only done 20. This is the 21st episode. Well, to get the downloads that I get is, from what I've looked at, it's staggeringly a lot more than other people. But I don't make any money. My channel is sponsored, so I have revenue coming in from the YouTube channel sponsorship and my Patreon, and I suppose merch and things. But the actual podcast, I don't monetize that. But I love it. I love this. For me, it's all about interaction. It's all about getting to know you, getting to know like my peers on YouTube, getting to know the people who follow through the questions, the meetups, when you do events, people come up and chat away to you. I love all that. So I do get...
Don't they say like... They sort of say, I can't remember who I was listening to recently on the podcast, or maybe it was a YouTube video, but they say kind of like do 100 of something and then kind of get thinking about monetizing or getting introspective about it. And I think probably me and Tim have found that with our podcast. We've tried a few things. We've talked about news kind of topics. We had Andy on. We thought about getting other guests, and I think we're still thinking about what would make it really good. But I think for you've already hit on We didn't really go at the guests angle, but like you've already hit on this kind of like that's your thing. And I think if you're seeing success now in terms of downloads that's above what other people see, you may as well just not. If you can, survive on what you're earning from other stuff, just go really hard for like 100 episodes, and then you know what it's like. By the time you get to that stage, everything will be different. Like something will have come up.
Definitely.
So,
and I think
I just think you should definitely keep going with it and just keep driving hard at it because it's definitely.
I'm in a great position. Certainly financially, I'm in a good position in that. Just with how things are at the moment, I can keep my head above water. So, everyone wants more, but I don't need more to survive at the moment. So I can have the podcast as this is my little bit of indulgence. This is just me talking shit with people that I want to chat with. So it's brilliant. And the way I see the podcast going in the future is, it's for me, my whole channel isn't just about bikes. My whole channel is about the live your life ethos. It's about, on the podcast, I want people on here who have a story to tell, who have done something or have a great outlook on life and like a positive message to pass on to people. That's what I want for the podcast is to really back that up. People just tune in and either listen to us talk shit and having a great laugh or chat about life, or they get something from it. It's a bit of escapism for some people. There's people on here. There's a lad on my Patreon who works in the bins, and every week he drives the bin wagon listening to the podcast, and now he's got all the boys into it, so he might actually have left a question for us later on. I'm not sure. John Broadhurst is his name.
There's a guy who listens to our podcast as well, and once I was going down that A2 on my Speedtwin, and this huge lorry was just like and I was like, what have I done? Like, I was like, oh,
it's like Jill.
And then he was just like like this, and he messaged me saying, I'm so sorry, that was so irresponsible, but I was just really excited to see you. And he said he sort of when he's doing his long drives and stuff, he sticks a podcast
Brilliant.
on, and it's nice to hear, I suppose.
I love all that. I love that when people come up to you and say hello and stuff. I love all that. Most random one I had, I was in Morocco. I was taking some people on a tour, a 10-day tour around Morocco, and we were in Ouarzazate? Is it Ouarzazate? One of the cities in Morocco anyway. And we're in a hotel there waiting for our table for dinner, and this woman came up and she said, Are you Mr. Coffee? Are you Coffee Pot? And I was like, sorry, what? And one of the lads went, she wants to know, are you Teapot? Because I think she was like Austrian or somewhere from sort of Europe. And I said, oh, sorry, yes, I'm TeapotOne. And she said, oh, excellent. She said, my husband listens to your YouTube videos, and he loves you very much, but he is too scared to come. He is at my table. Would you come and say hello? So she took me through to the restaurant, and I had to say hello to this geezer that was sort of sat there. It was just all that random stuff. I love all that. It's brilliant.
That's funny you saying about Mr. Coffee or whatever, because when I was at Crazy Horse demoing the Brutale, someone there was like, oh, who did we have yesterday? And they were like, it was pork chop. And I was like, pork chop?
Lamb chop.
And then I was like, mulling, yeah. But then, I've not been able to stop thinking about that. I really like pork chop.
I might start calling him that. It's brilliant. Pork chop. Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
It's like Richie Vida. We all call him Dickie Vegas now. So, and hopefully, thankfully that's stuck. So that's brilliant. Good work, people. Good work.
Well, pork chop, hopefully that one sticks.
What about
I did think it was funny.
Going on with this question from Nick Turnbull. RJ, you ever met RJ?
I've not met him. I think he's very secretive. It's also kind of weird that I don't know if is he still going at the same velocity as he was before?
No idea.
He just kind of has gone off my radar, and I'm not sure whether, YouTube will, if it starts showing you videos from a certain person and then you stop watching them, it'll sort of show them less and less.
Yeah, it does,
and less,
doesn't it? Yeah.
No, he's still getting good. He's getting good views still. Yeah, I just didn't know if he was kind of still going at it.
What's he at subscriber-wise now?
1.39 mil.
Wow, that's phenomenal,
you know what,
isn't it?
Yeah, it is pretty full on.
My old job.
But yeah, I've seen it. Sorry, just to two things quickly before you say about your old job. Number one, I don't think I've seen him, but there was a guy on my route who also rode a Nuda.
Mm-hmm.
So quite often I was excited and I was like, here it is, RJ. And then I was like, I'm pretty sure it's not him. It's just some guy with a Nuda. I would. The other thing, when you say it's impressive, his 1.39 million subscribers. It is, but he gets about 3 million. I'm just looking at Social Blade now. 3 million views a month. The thing
Everyone's
that
on
blows
Social
my
Blade,
mind,
aren't they? Tweaking the carton of all the rivals.
Yeah, definitely. The thing that blows my mind, and I've not seen a number anywhere near this, is like Yummy Noob's view numbers at the moment are unreal. So,
Yummy Noobs, are they?
Yes. Wow. Higher than anyone. Higher than a lot of car channels. So, I mean, for frame of reference, if I bang motoBob into, I got 1.2 million views in the last 30 days.
Jesus.
I'm pretty happy with that.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, nothing to
my views are
sniff
terrible.
at. Yeah, but you, like I said, you are much more in that kind of
my engagement's sky
Patreon
high.
kind of world. Yeah, exactly. Where, like, literally, if I started a Patreon and said, "Does anyone pay to watch my videos?" I want to be like, "Nah, mate, I'm not bothered." TMF, right? 1.35. So me and Andy are getting. I got 1.279 million views in a month.
He'll have to beat you. He'll be happy he's beat you. He can sleep.
Yeah, no, but I can make that up. I'm going to do it. 1.35. So, similar amount of views. And even if you go 40/40, big channel like that, less than both me and Andy, 964,000 views last 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
I think about 1 million views a month is probably the going rate for a motorcycle YouTube channel at the moment.
Jesus, seriously?
Well, like the sort of like at that level. It
takes me about 6 months to get that.
You're probably making more money than me. Anyway.
Not off YouTube, I'm not. Not off YouTube.
And then I said about Royal Jordanian. 3.5 was it? I said 3.5 million views. Yummy Noob, 7.5 million views a month. 7.5 million. So if you think Andy's, so if you think Andy's doing a good job, and he is like cranking out that content, covers almost every new bike. That I just don't see any motorcycle channels anywhere near that level, and I think. I don't know what your kind of perception of his channel is.
Don't watch it.
I know, like... Huh?
Don't watch it.
Don't you?
Nah.
It's much more... I think the reason it's got broad reach is because it's like 10 ways to get involved in motorcycling, or best 5 motorcycles for beginners. He does a lot of stuff around kind of modding bikes as well now. So there is more stuff for the kind of more, into it biker. But I just think those numbers are unreal.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's crazy. I used to watch a lot of the American ones, but about the only one I watch now is Chase. I'm a patron for Chase, so I watch a lot of his wreck bike rebuild stuff, and I just think I kind of appreciate. For me, I really appreciate the work that he puts in. When you see the production values, and I see what he's done, and you can look back at his old stuff to what he's doing now, and you can see how the bloke's matured in time. So a lot of the Americans just... Yeah. It annoyed me, and I suppose this is quite historical because I'm going back probably 5 to 10 years when I first started watching the motovlog stuff, and the Americans were just wheeling, riding like dicks in the cities, on the freeways, swearing loads, and I just thought, I can't be arsed with that. So I never bothered watching any of them. And I appreciate the whole genre has moved on a lot. There's still people doing that, but the whole genre has moved on, definitely. But yeah, I think I've got, you're saying there about those views. Jesus, I think I've got 3.5 million in total for my channel in like 8 years, 9 years.
No, but that just shows like that you've hit on something that can be successful without, and I think Chase has moved to that that model, although obviously he has bigger reach, but from what I can gather, his focus is much more on Patreon now and less really caring about YouTube. It's just a way to advertise his Patreon, and that's where the focus is. So it's different for everyone, and there's different ways to do it for sure. But yeah, it's a big old number that for Yummy Noob. But like I say, I watch a lot of car stuff as well.
Do you?
I mean, it doesn't have the same passion for me. I can't say that I'm necessarily like mad about cars, but I just like to see how they do it. Basically, I think you can, if you think about, we're talking about production quality that I try and aspire to on my videos, and it's nowhere near where I'd like it to be. A lot of it I get from car channels. Like there's a great channel called Cars with Luke. It's a guy who lives in Switzerland. He just goes up and down the Grimsel Pass or whatever, and he's into Porsches. And you can just learn so much from watching how they shoot their videos. And it's difficult because there's a lot more money in cars, so it's easier to get a press car. I think also there's more to talk about in a car because there's more stuff. But still, I think looking at those videos and thinking, well, how do I apply that to motorcycling? Definitely helps. So I watch a lot of that stuff as well. But like I say, I only just got a car like a few months ago because we had our second kid. So having lived in London for 10 years, we just rented cars.
I suppose you don't really need one, do you? All that much.
No, you need a bike. That's what you need, definitely.
Everyone needs a bike. Speaking of which, London, Ben Tiffin, next one. You're both experienced in commuting in London. What piece of advice would you give to anyone who isn't as experienced of city commuting?
Oh dear. What a question. I mean, number one, like you can leave a bloody big chain wherever you park. It's not necessarily that you buy. I think the bike crime thing is overstated, and you can easily get into a wormhole on YouTube of watching videos where bikes are getting nicked and bike jacked. It's not like that. In my whole time in riding in London, I've never really had a problem like that.
Jeez,
but
I did.
Did you? Well, bikejacking?
Yeah. Someone tried. They were going to, definitely, I got it on camera, they were going to jack my bike right next to Big Ben. I was coming in for a night duty, stopped at traffic lights at Big Ben, and it was a typical, out of nowhere. I like to think I'm quite switched on the bike, and I'm eyes about everywhere just because of the type of person I am. And I always do look around me, and I always have the bike in gear ready to go just in case, because I've got to come through. Well, I used to have to ride through some shit parts of London, so I'm always ready to get out if I need to get out. Well, I pulled up at the lights, and this geezer just appeared out of nowhere, pulled right in front of me, blocked my path, and the old T-Max behind, 2 up, was right behind, saw them pull up, and it's like, fuck me, where did you come from?
What bike were you on?
GS. One of the GS's, and the geezer looked. He was with a young, thin little black lad, and he had like a string vest on, like just a vest, shortless sleeve vest, and he looked straight at my camera, waved at the camera, like looked by me at the 2 geezers behind, shook his head, and they went straight through the red lights and off they went. And I was just like, fucking, it's literally as quick as that. And I was like, oh man. Then you start thinking, what would you do? Do you know what I mean? If they went for it, it's like, well, I'll put one in the river, but you're like, that's one. There's 3 of them, so there's still 2 left. And you're like, if they don't stab you, your bike's gone anyway, isn't it? And you're like, great.
Well, thing is, though, that's it's difficult because that is obviously alarming, but also I would say it's pretty rare. What I'm trying to, what I was saying about when you watch it, I do think it has changed. I agree. I don't think it's as prolific.
Last year or two, it's
was.
eased off. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. But also, watching YouTube videos and compilations of bike jackings, like it can really shit you up, and it really isn't that bad. No. But the 2 things that really give me peace of mind are like if you commute to the same place every day, if you can leave a chain there. Especially in like Camden Borough, where there are a lot of rails along the motorcycle parking bay. Yeah, like you could cut through a rail with an angle grinder, but honestly, most people don't bother to take a chain. So if you've got a decent one, not the cheapest, like Oxford one or whatever, like an Almax or something, leave it there locked up. I know there's all these kind of stories like, oh, someone can cut your chain and then put like that little material sheath back over so you don't realise, and then they'll just like. In London, that doesn't really happen. There are so many Ducatis or whatever parked up with just one disc lock on that. If your bike's fairly protected, it'll really give you peace of mind. But the other thing is a tracker. You know, when you're like sat at work and you're like, shit, did I put my lock on my bike? Or like, oh, I just felt a bit dodgy today. I'm at a meeting or whatever. The ability to open your phone and just see your bike is still where you left. It's still where I left it. Like, that's all you need to be able to just kind of like be like,
100%.
Right, put that stuff out online. So big chain if you commute to the same place. Tracker. In terms of riding technique, I mean, like I was saying earlier, become one with the traffic. Assume no one's seen you.
Absolutely.
And really just try and anticipate, like, what are people going to do next? What would like a flawed human do in this situation? You know, are they going to do it? I mean, I believe, I don't know if you've seen all the stats on it, but big anecdotal cause of accidents that I've heard, from speaking to a lot of people who've ridden in London is in traffic, it's nose to tail, you're filtering down the outside, and a cabbie or an Uber gets a fare or gets bored of waiting, and they just do a U-ing. And they just swing out. And I've heard of so many people getting caught with that.
I did. Got wiped out in Deptford.
Same thing.
Exactly the same.
Don't feel. I mean, it happens. I'm not saying that you did any of these things, but the thing that I always look for is like, don't filter too quick, even though it's tempting to fly down the outside. I would say use all the road as well. Like, if there's nothing oncoming and you're in the other lane, don't feel like you have to stick right next to
dominate the road. Dominate it. Yeah.
The benefit of being in the middle of the oncoming lane, if there's nothing coming, is like if a pedestrian comes out that way or that way, you've got time to react. If someone pulls out that way,
100%.
And then also you're just looking for wheels. If anyone starts to turn their wheel, if any nose starts to turn, but I
always found with commuting, slower is faster. So it's like rather than battle and rev the nuts out of the bike to get it to the front where the lights are, and then you sit and wait. Just time it. Just time it so that you arrive just at the front as the lights are changing, and through you go. Just try and keep your wheels turning all the time. Just slow and steady. You will get there.
I mean, you'll know this, mate, when you have been like ragging the bike, and at every set of lights, the same cyclist keeps showing up alongside you.
Absolutely. Had it many a time. Yeah, definitely. Commuting, like you said, we had somebody asked a question last week on the last podcast with me and Mr. Fish. They just had their bike nicked off the drive, and they were like, what can I do to try and make my bike safe? And it's exactly what you said. Same with commuting. You just have to make your bike, in terms of security, you've just got to make your bike less attractive than another bike that's near it, wherever you park it. Because, scroats, when they turn up, they do steal to order, absolutely. But a lot of the time they're just going out and it's just like, right, what bike can we get from here? That one, right? That one's not got a cover, that one's not got a chain. That's the least grief, we'll have that. Bosh, done. And it's literally 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and the thing's away. If your bike's chained up, it's got the tracker. Tracker's a great bit of kit. I've got some great stories from the old Bill where the tracker has basically got the bike back to the punter. It does work, absolutely does work. I've got one on mine now, and they're, as you said, it's a lifesaver, isn't it? You know, even when my bike's in my garage outside, I live in the middle of nowhere, and if I get that phone call from Data Tool or whoever it is saying we've detected some movement on your bike, I'm like, shit, right, straight up at the window. No, there it is. It's in my garage. It's fine, you know. But it's just that bit of peace of mind.
I've got one from Moto. Don't know if you know about that company. It's a little stick. I meant to make a review. I haven't done yet. I've just been using it. But the thing that's great about that is, like, for me anyway, is you don't wire it in or anything. It's just it's battery powered. And the whole ethos of it is like it uses minimal battery basically, and it kind of like enables when the fob is out of range. Yeah. And honestly, I whenever I take a press bike out, the beautiful thing is just this little log that I can just like stick under the saddle. So,
right.
Like that's the thing with press bikes. You're like, oh my goodness, it's so, especially getting into town. You've got a nice new whatever. So it's the peace of mind for me that's the kind of big. Obviously, if your bike gets nicked and it gets recovered because of your tracker. And that's what they sell a lot of trackers on, is like, get your bike back. Then obviously it pays for itself. But, you know, don't think by buying a tracker and then your bike not being nicked that you've kind of lost anything. I think it de-stresses biking in London, or like you say, overnight, you know, a lot. I think it's really valuable. So
definitely. And a lot of new bikes come with them now. Like I just bought that new tractor, the new GS, and I was never asked if I wanted a tracker, and if I'd been asked, I'd have said no, in all honesty. But they all come with one now. They all come with it already fitted, and then it's down to you to take out the subscription. And I have now, and I'm plumbing glad I have. Yeah. So, folks, sorry about that. There's the camera. Rob's camera had stopped. It ran out. It's got a timer on it, basically. So that's why we've had to cut to a little bit of the Zoom footage. But we're back now. Let's move on to the next question. Go on in.
We were just talking about security.
Yes. Yeah.
It's good that manufacturers are putting trackers in. It still feels like two things. A lot of bikes are pushed away in neutral. If you could somehow lock it in gear, that would be brilliant. Because you know they're ped pushed, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, and then also the steering locks are just like ridiculously easy to break.
Yeah. It's frightening how easy it is to break the steering lock, isn't it? When you watch them do it, it's literally just like, done, right? Push it away, job done. And even if you leave it in gear, pull the clutch in, off they go.
That's true, actually. Yeah, I've heard of people who put it in gear, like, or knock it up a few gears, and then they say, like, just remove your clutch lever. But that's too much for me. I can't be bothered.
Yeah, I've seen people talk about that. Nah. You might do it the first week that you've got this idea, and then you just don't, do you?
It's like, you know what, it's a good trick if you get a puncture and you've got to leave your bike overnight in the middle of town, like, and you've got a screwdriver on you and you don't really have many locks. It's a good shout. But otherwise, nah. Anyway, sorry, you were going to move on to the next question.
Let's not scare the shit out of everybody now. Right, Alex Warren, are you okay with your kids or partner taking up biking? Ooh, that's one. Does your missus, does your missus ride a bike? Is she into that?
She loves, like, she doesn't anymore, but we used to commute every day together. And like, it was brilliant. Like I say, the trips we did were great, but even commuting through town, because we had the headsets, it's really different. You know, we've both been used to commuting on the tube or the bus or whatever. And then when we got the bike, you just see all sorts, you know, you just see all sorts going on. You just, weirdly as well, it was sort of one of the few times in the day where we would just constantly talk, you know, that you're so busy otherwise, whereas on the way in, it would just be time on the bike, and we just chat away about what's going on and stuff. And then, so I drop her off because our offices were nearby, and then I pick her up, and then we'd go home. And I personally, I'd love it if she did, you know, get a license. I think we'd have some good times. But I also don't feel necessarily that the times we've been on the bike away together have been limited by only one of us riding. I think the joy of it is the experience and the shared experience and the freedom of it and the adventure of it.
Nice.
And the fact that all you're doing is like packing the minimal stuff and you don't care about taking any kind of luxuries. You're just going for a good time to go and see some beautiful locations and, you know, have a few beers and that. So yeah, as for the kids, I mean, I feel like it's probably somewhat irrelevant. I don't know what the hell motorcycling and driving and whatnot is going to look like when my kids get to that age.
It's changing so quick, isn't it, at the moment?
I would love them to, you know, ideally we'd have a little field out the back and they could razz around on a little dirt bike. I always see people, like, there's quite a few people on Instagram whose kids do that.
Ali Fagans, his kids have started doing enduro now, haven't they? Motocross and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, like I said earlier, that's how you learn to ride. And
absolutely.
Like, that's not ever going to be a skill where later in life they're going to be, you know, annoyed about having that. I mean, anything that you learn to do with balance and sort of riding, if they want to cycle or mountain bike or whatever, you know, that's all good experience, and the best riders come from that. So I would love that. And to be honest, there are some really good little electric off-road bikes. What are they called? Like Osset or something?
Yeah, Osset bikes, yeah.
Yeah. Those look like a lot of fun, so I can see them doing that. I've got no problem with it. I think also a little field like that, it's kind of like a safe environment if you've got a lot of like runoff. But yeah, I would love it. I just don't know if I believe that in 16, well, when can you get a bike license now? When you're 16, is it?
16 you can do your CVT, 17. I think. Yeah.
So when 14 years time, when my daughter's that age, I just can't see her going down some car park in South London and getting on a CB125 or whatever, and
be hovering
with a
somewhere
high-vis vest. Exactly.
Who knows, mate? Who knows what they'll be doing?
Have you ever ridden the A2 licensed Zeros?
Not the A2 ones, no.
It's mad.
Yeah.
They're like, I think it's the A2. No, there's a Zero you can ride on a CBT with L plates.
Jesus.
And it's something about the difference between peak power and continuous power. But basically, it is ridiculously fast. So yeah, hopefully they've sorted that out by the time my kids.
I just wish.
I think it's just
the Zeros going on to electric bikes. I wish the Zeros would embrace the DC charging like Energica have, because Energica you can recharge even the Rebel, where it's got allegedly 150 200 mile range. You can recharge that DC in 20 minutes? No, 40 minutes. 40 minutes.
Yeah,
and you're like, why doesn't Zero do that? Because it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours, I think, for the Zero.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? And they're really kind of the market leaders in terms of like branding and presence. I think Energica's still a bit more niche. But
then
so you think they'd be pushing it on, but
Energica have sort of got it because they're the brand, they're the manufacturer behind Moto E. So That's a massive plus. And I think Energicas are a better looking bike. I think it's probably the Italian, but they're a much more stylish looking bike, I think, personally.
They're well heavy though. I don't know about the new one, but they are well heavy.
Yeah.
I would argue the Zero SRF, I thought is great. The naked, I think that's a great looking bike. The trellis frame, and they've made a feature of the battery. But the best looking electric, hands down, is the Livewire.
Not ridden it yet.
I don't know if I've not ridden it, but I've looked at it in the flesh, and it's a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
But they've nailed it. It looks great. So yeah, hopefully I'll get to ride one. But I don't even know if I believe that. I don't know. I can't see, if I was an 18-year-old living in London, I can't see why I would be asked to get a motorcycle license that costs like $1,000 just to ride around on a Livewire. I mean, obviously I wouldn't be able to afford one. So maybe one of the Zeros that's like $9,000 or whatever. Why would I bother to go through all of that when I can just get one of those little like fold-up electric scooters that do 30 miles an hour, and they cost like £400, and I don't need to get a license, and I can't get it done for speeding. I don't need to insure it. I can just scoot around and enjoy myself, and I don't have to set down like 10, 12 grand just to get on the road.
Absolutely, but what about the 16-year-old that lives out in the sticks and needs some form of, is sick of getting a bus, or fed up with their mum or dad or older siblings giving them a run everywhere in the car? What if they just want a set of wheels in the future?
Well, electrics still aren't quite at that level, are they?
Not at the moment.
Like, hopefully,
no, not at the moment.
But yeah, hopefully
I don't think
in
it's
the future.
far. I don't think it. I genuinely do not think we're that far away from them becoming a viable alternative for maybe not the majority, but for a lot of people. There's, even in the 2-3 years that I've been reviewing the electric stuff, definitely even this year there have been a lot more people contacting me saying, I've bought one, I've got one, I've made the jump, I've got it. And for me, I wouldn't buy one yet, just because I need a bike to do everything, and an electric bike doesn't do everything yet. I could have one as a second bike, but they're 20 grand, and I'm not going to spend 20 grand on a second bike. It's too much money. So, but I don't.
That's
I think
exactly what I said in my SRS review.
Is it right?
Yeah. I was like, I would love one of these for commuting on, but if I could afford it as a second bike, which is currently not the situation where I can, drop 20 grand on a side bike. But I think they're brilliant. I think the experience of riding them is as much fun. I think it's a bit of a tricky situation. People who ride bikes, I think the perception is they'll be less fun to ride because there's no gears, no clutch. It's less engaging. It's a little bit more simplistic.
All the usual staples.
And so, like electric manufacturers have got to decide: is it existing bikers who are set, on riding a petrol bike with all that stuff? Am I trying to tempt them over to an electric bike, or am I just trying to tempt another audience to start motorcycling?
No, true,
the kind of Tesla crowd who maybe live in London or the city, or a younger audience, although those younger kind of consumers have less money anyway. So it's really all a bit messy and tricky. There's this halfway house. I don't know if you know about this, but I had a bike from Artisan Electric, which is a company that imports Chinese electric bikes into the UK. They have a supermoto called the Coulter. So I tried that out for a while. But next year they've got a manual version coming out. So it will have a clutch and gears on an electric bike. And for me, it's well interesting to see how that pans out. Are they going to get a few people buying it because they like that setup and they like the idea of an electric bike? Or is it just too much of a halfway house to... Do you know what I mean? Like, are they barking up the wrong tree by trying to go after that? And apparently there's no performance benefit, really, to putting gears on an electric bike.
I wouldn't have thought there would be, no. I've just been totally swung by electric. I love them. I genuinely love them. I think it's great fun. And I have got no qualms with if in my lifetime, if we move totally from internal combustion to electric. It used to be the fear of death to me, and then I rode an electric and I was like, no, I get it. Yeah, no problem. I get every bit as much fun out of electric as I do out of the petrol.
What I think is funny is that everyone says, I miss the sound of an electric, a petrol bike. Yeah, like there's nothing ever going to replace like the sound of like a V-twin or something. Yeah, exactly. But I feel like
you get more
electric bikes. They sound cool.
Yeah.
They're just too quiet. And if there's any level of sound damping that goes into electric bikes, I don't know if there is, but if there's any level of designing the motor that attempts to dampen the sound that it makes, they should just do away with it, because they're never going to be so loud that they're above the legal limit for what a motorbike could be.
Yeah, true.
But the more that you hear that kind of Star Wars, like, kind of as you accelerate,
milk
you're just
flow
like,
on
this
steroids.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how is that not a really fun thing to do? Like, it sounds great. It just needs to be louder. And I suppose what people want is that kind of equivalent of putting a Kropovich,
True.
full system on an electric bike. Like, what is that? How do I make it sound? How do I get noticed on this electric bike if it's
that's it.
Like you say, basically?
That's how do I get noticed on this bike? That's exactly what it is, isn't it? That's what a loud can's all about. We can hide behind the loud can save lives bollocks, but ultimately it's to make people turn around and look. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Yeah. No, interesting. Yeah, interesting. Well, we'll see. Well, I reckon in our lifetimes we'll find out. Definitely.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Right. Well, this brings us on to David Hemmings. To you both, if you only had one motorcycle to ride forever, what would it be? Ooh. One bike forevermore.
These are real. They're all real thinkers. These questions,
they are.
Aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. They started off with your generic sort of questions, definitely. But I think as the podcast has sort of developed, people have got quite deep with the questions and retrospective.
Well, they want to hear something. Yeah, they don't want to hear the same answers.
No. Yeah.
Every
GS.
Okay, you're not allowed to say GS because...
Okay, because it's the best bike in the world and it's boring. So, right.
Okay, if it wasn't a GS...
Probably...
Let's say it's a given that it's a GS.
Probably
if it wasn't
the new Gen 3 Super Duke R. I genuinely loved that bike. I genuinely nearly bought one after having it for 2 weeks. Loved it. Absolutely loved that machine. Made me smile, made me grin, made me shit myself nearly. I loved it. Phenomenal riding bike.
This is not probably what you'd expect me to say.
GS.
Nah, it's not that.
Have you ridden one?
No, I've not. I mean,
see?
My dad's got. My dad's had loads of boxer twins. He's a massive fan. So I've ridden like RTs, Rs, RSs. I've had the R90. Look, I'm not against them at all, but I just feel like my time will come to ride like whatever the new GS is, and I'll take it and I'll enjoy it. But It's just not come up yet. Of all the bikes that I've ridden recently, if there's one that I could keep forever, like the one that sticks in my mind is the DCT Goldwing.
So many people have said that. I've still not ridden one yet. I've still not ridden one, but everyone I know that's taken a Goldwing out has just been like, fuck, I don't want to tell anyone, but I love this thing. This is amazing.
I've got to say,
it speaks volumes.
Because it'll do everything. You know, when I was talking about what me and my wife used to do on our ER6 and like do all the touring, now I've had the kids, like what, you know, I know that now while I'm out riding on my own, I get all these press bikes. I can go and, you know, do a day of like blasting about. But what I really want to do is some seriously like good holidays when we've got our sort of, you know, maybe when the kids are gone, moved away and stuff, and we've got a bit of time to ourselves. Like, and you know, all the Goldwing heads, like they're like, oh, the storage is not that good or whatever, blah 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 blah. But it is literally. And I've ridden, I like going and riding Harleys and stuff like that. I've ridden, you know, the Rocket, I've ridden all that stuff. It is literally an armchair on wheels. I know that's a cliche, but it is such an armchair on wheels. And the thing that really surprised me about it is how much I love the sound of a flat six, you know? Where else do you get that? Yeah. Subarus, Porsches, and then the Goldwing. That's the only place you're going to get that sound, and it sounds absolutely epic. I'd say the only negative of the Goldwing is it carries the weight so low because of that big flat. In fact, you might like it if you like a Boxer. If you're a flat cylinder layout fan, you may well like it. But yeah, the thing that kind of to watch out with it is I found, like, you know those when you come off a motorway or when you're going on a motorway and you get those really long turns, those long sweeping turns as you come round like onto the next like motorway. Yeah. They're fun, but the Goldwing tempts you into thinking that it can handle going quite quickly, because 70 feels, it feels effortless to go 70 on it. And then when you get to that slip road, you're like, it's purring. It's not even trying, the engine. It feels pretty light. The weight's low. And then you're like, oh shit, it is actually 300 kilograms and then me on top of it. And it does feel a little bit like it'll want to go straight on. And I think you have to kind of rein it in. But, you know, what a bike. Definitely, you know, the guys at Honda will definitely get one in your hands, I'm sure, because they're great to work with.
I just dropped them a line actually this week to say hello, I'm alive, because I hadn't heard from them, and I just made contact with them just before COVID hit, basically, with lockdown, so that kiboshed everything. And then you know, they said they'd be back in touch when they had the press fleet again, and I'm watching on Instagram everyone taking out the press fleet, and I'm still sat here like, do I contact you? Do you contact me? What happens? So last week I just thought, fuck it, I'll drop you a line. And they were like, oh shit, sorry, yes, absolutely. So I should hopefully have some Hondas coming.
Yeah, I mean, it's all, every press team's different, isn't it? Some will be proactive, some will want to hear from you, but you know, I'm sure if you drop them a line, they've been pretty good to work with anyway, as far as I'm concerned. But that was a real standout bike, apart from I had a fairly I always have these like weird endings to my times with press bikes. That one, I really wanted to get loads of B-roll of it. I just thought it was like this crazy looking thing, and when you do photos and B-roll of bikes, you always want the lights on. It makes them look so much better.
As you move the camera, you can get some lovely shots, can't you, of the lights?
Exactly, like you get all the flare and stuff. And I rode like 2 miles away, and I left the lights on. I was filming it for ages. I think it was in winter, but I could just be a bit soft. But anyway, I left the heated seats and grips on, I think. and it flattened the battery like quicker than anything, because those heated stuff, heated stuff, it really kind of runs it down quick. So in the half hour that I was filming, and I think I was a bit like, I didn't need the lights on the whole time, but normally you leave the DR, like if you turn a ignition on, the DRL's on or whatever, and then maybe not till you start it you get the whole lot. Anyway, flatted the battery. London's a night. You can't just leave a bike somewhere.
No.
And the nearest parking bay was up a hill. So I was like, I cannot push this bike up the hill. So it was in a residence parking bay. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I left it in this residence parking bay. I didn't have any locks with me, but I was just like, I had to get home for something. I had a meeting. So I left it there, came home, called AA. I was like, I flatted a gold wing. And then the guy in the AA van came here, picked me up, took me back up there. He's a total legend. And then he's like, so we just need to jumpstart it. Where's the battery? And it's keyless, the gold wing. And the procedure for getting to the battery is like pretty unreal. So you need a screwdriver to get a panel off above the number plate at the back.
Right.
Pop the panel off. And then in the keyless key, you can pull out, if you've got a little whatever, like pull out a tiny key. It goes in the keyhole above the license plate, turn it, and that will unlock the left-hand pannier. Left-hand pannier comes down, which allows you to pull off a side panel, and then the side panel...
Are you taking the piss?
No, the side panel then reveals the battery. And I only knew all this stuff because I Googled it.
Mate, the Holy Grail's easier to find than that. Jesus.
The AA guy was like, he was just taking photos on his phone, actually. He was like, I've never seen like a, what is it, a 1.8 litre, isn't it? Yeah. He's like, I've never seen a 1.8 litre motorcycle. He's like, let me take a picture. And I'm like, all right, mate, like, have you got a
wait till he gets a rocket
to pop this off? Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we got it started and then got it home and then charged it up and then got it back to Honda. But yeah,
Jeez.
That was my finale with it. But otherwise, it's well good. Loved it.
That brings us on. Your answers are tying in with the next questions very well so far. Next question is Stuart Bailey. Have you ever had a bike for review or long term and dropped it, crashed it, or damaged it in some expensive way? I can put my hand on my heart and say so far, no, I've not. So far.
I've had a couple of little scrapes or whatever that have had to be dealt with.
Dealt with.
Nothing. I've never like binned a bike.
Right.
Just like, occasionally in the garage it's been a bit tight and got a bit of a scuff. But the thing is, they don't really mind about like a bar end needing to be replaced, like, because they'll do it in the garage, So yeah, I've not. But I mean, honestly, I've been on press launches where I've not dropped a bike on a press launch, but I've been on press launches where a bike's been dropped, and they don't mind necessarily that much.
Right. Never done one. I've never done a press launch.
I think it's part and parcel of riding bikes. Sometimes, it just happens. Yeah. And obviously you want to give the bikes back in the best condition possible. But yeah, it does occasionally happen, especially like, I mentioned I've been out on like the Tiger 900 launch. It wasn't me, but like a couple of bikes went down. But like, can you really take everybody off road in Morocco?
You've got to expect it. Yeah, you've got to expect it.
Yeah, exactly. So, ideally that doesn't happen. I've only had a couple of minor bits and bobs so far, but a video on my channel is worth more than a bar end, isn't it?
This is true, isn't it? And I think a lot of manufacturers are realising that. They're realising the value, because they wouldn't have thought twice about spending 20 or 30 grand on a blooming advert in a magazine.
Well, mate, like, have you ever looked at, hopefully, what are we, 2 hours into this podcast now? I've got 2.5 minutes left on my camera, but Bauer Media own MCN.
Yep. Of which MCN's picked up their game. They've really picked up the game in terms of YouTube content. Their production quality is way... Remember initially, it was dog shit. And now, it's a lot better.
But, go on the Bauer Media website. They have, but I'm more comparing to the print stuff. What do you think a full page in MCN is? Oh shit, hang on.
Right, start and stop the camera. Hang on. Right, full page on MCN. Oh, jeez. It can't be anywhere near what it used to be, so now, I don't know, £1,000, 500 quid, £1,000 now? I don't know.
A full page in MCN is, as far as I can tell, 6,750.
That's insane. That's insane.
And then how many copies do you think they sell a week?
Who pays that? Jesus. Now, 15, 20,000 maybe?
Actually, more than that, 48,000.
All right, okay.
According to their average from ABC, which is like Auditing Bureau Circulations for 2019. So maybe it's a bit down on that. But that's on the MCN, on the Bauer Media Pack's website. So, look, like, the problem with full-page spreads in print is there's no guarantee that anybody actually looked at it. They're just reading the editorial. If you integrate some kind of, like, advert into your, your YouTube channel, or if you put a whole video up there about a bike that someone's lent to you, like they're going to watch the whole thing. There's no ad blindness. There's no like ignoring it. That's what they're watching. So the fact that someone will pay $6,500 for a fraction of 48,000 people to see a certain advert. I'm not knocking what MCN do, but I'm just saying. I feel like YouTubers don't quite understand. 48,000 copies sold, like on YouTube, it's easily possible. There's a few videos on my channel that are getting up towards a million views, and you've probably got a few that have gone well above 50,000.
Oh yeah.
It's just a bit of perspective of kind of like, I feel like there's a kind of inferiority kind of idea about YouTube versus print.
There's a lot of snobbery about it, definitely. Amongst traditional journalists, there is still. But I think now it's more tongue-in-cheek, whereas before it used to be some serious sort of snobbery. And now I think they realise online media is the future, but they still hang on to the fact that, they are trained journalists at the end of the day, and we're, in essence, winging it, but we're winging it on a new medium and sort of becoming, without wanting to sound obtuse, but we're becoming leaders in our little field, in our little area of expertise, I suppose, for now. But I mean, next year it might be somebody else.
At very least, I guess what I'm saying is, companies pay a lot of money to advertisers with these publications. I've seen, bikes get damaged on press launches, it not be a big deal. Yet, as influencers, you kind of feel some kind of level of humility, even though the numbers can be really big. And I think, I'm not saying be big-headed about it or anything, but certainly with what gets paid for sponsor videos and stuff, and that gives a bit of perspective about what's possible or what what's kind of reasonable in the market. And also with regards to borrowing bikes, you take care of them as much as you can, and you really want to give them back in good nick. But if shit happens with bikes, the coverage ought to be worth it. If you're putting out good content.
And I think they realise that.
Yeah.
As long as you've not been reckless with it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, if an accident happens, an accident happens. It's just part and parcel of it. And I know KTM are particularly good like that. If something does happen, they're just like, were you riding like a dick? If you are, then okay, you need to swallow some of this. If you weren't, fine, okay. So, yeah. Right, mate, we have about 5 more questions left on Patreon, and then we've got some Instagram questions. We are 2 hours 10 minutes or so in. Shall we? Let's try. We've got him.
I might need to run to the loo so that
Feel
we can
free.
just smash through the questions.
On you go, bud. On you go. No
It's
worries.
quite a good engagement strategy, though. Just leave all the questions to the last minute, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, so we're going to rapid fire a few questions.
Yes. Yeah. Right. So let's crack on. Let's try and bash a few questions out. Andy Horton, to both of you, do you think the motorcycle vlogging arena is getting too saturated? Is this a concern? I've been asked this before on a podcast. No, I don't think so. I think the YouTube medium itself it's big enough. It's big enough to handle, the sort of... It's a wave, isn't it? At the moment, there's a big wave of new motovloggers coming in. Younger motovloggers, there's a lot of female motovloggers, there's a lot of people trying their arm at it. But I think the vast majority of people, with no disrespect, but the vast majority of people won't have the longevity to keep at it and keep at it and keep at it to get it to a stage where it, in order to get to the sort of level you're at, or dare I say where I'm at, it takes a long time, doesn't it? And it takes a lot of commitment to get it there. And the vast majority of people out there won't do that.
In a market of motovloggers, you've got to figure out, well, what's my, what's going to make me stand out? Mm-hmm. And we talked about, I always try and sort of push my production value or whatever. I think we were talking about the fact that you've got maybe a smaller but more engaged audience who will kind of contribute through Patreon to keep your channel going, and I don't necessarily have that. So that's a big strength for you, really kind of engaging with your audience the way that you bring them into the podcast and stuff. But I've always thought that bare minimum, grafting, proper grafting, because it stops being fun. Okay, you can test it. Yeah, exactly. You can think of ways to make it fun, but testing a new bike, making a video about it, it can feel like work, can't it? And people don't seem to kind of think, oh, I'm going to ride over to I go to Crazy Horse, for example, a lot because the London shop is nearby. I might go and ride an MV Augusta or whatever. Or I go to Triumph London and ride one of the new Triumphs. It's not a day out on a bike. It is okay, what am I going to say about it that's going to make this interesting? What am I going to say about it that's going to make this different to everyone else's video? How am I going to get some good shots? The roads are all busy. I can't ride a, fast Triumph in central London. How am I going to communicate that, how it feels within the, geographical boundaries of what's possible within a day? All this stuff, and then it becomes a bit of a stress. And I think you're so right that basically being willing to do all that stuff and push through it and basically just kind of work really hard and kind of put out those videos and be willing to put all that thought in, be willing to stay up at night editing. You can't get really successful on YouTube with one video. It has to be a series. And something that's replicable and something that you can sustain. And I think, putting in hard work is a big part of it. And I think people might start doing it and then realize, after you've done 5 videos, test riding new bikes or whatever, and maybe it starts to be a bit less fun, and then they'll drop out. And I think that's it. So the graft is a big thing. As for moto vlogging specifically, I don't know if they mean moto vloggers, generally motorcycle vloggers, or specifically motovlogging as in a GoPro, a microphone, riding around.
I think that's what Andy's meaning is the whole camera on the side of the lead talking whilst you're on the bike.
Some people can do it well, and it's really good. And some people, it's a very easy form of content to create if you're not thoughtful about how you do it. And I think yourself, you do quite a bit of that stuff. Andy does obviously a lot of that stuff. I think if you're good at it, you'll succeed. But there's been a bit of a leap, hasn't there? Like you guys have got a leap on that. You've got an audience now. You've established yourselves. I do a bit of it as well, although I do some like more kind of newsy stuff as well. But it's going to be then hard for people. Like, I guess my question would be, if you're going to start doing motovlogging, what's going to mean that you're successful, given that there's already 10, 20 channels that people could watch, that the YouTube algorithm's going to suggest before you, because they're bigger channels,
But then also, what do you measure success by? If you enjoy doing it, if you want to make it your job, then you need to be putting in a lot of graft, and you need to be prepared to have a bit of a timeline in there in order to make it your job. I mean, I never ever, hand on my heart, never ever ever thought this would be my job. Never. This was just something I did, something I loved, and that's all it was. I just thought, well, with my views, there's no way I can make this a living. But somehow, I still can't quite figure it out, but somehow I think when I made that conscious decision to leap from the old Bill into this, people got behind it, and the Patreon kicked off, and I started getting approached by people to sponsor the channel, and my tours all sold out, and people bought the merch, and it was just, it just worked. Something happened that it just worked. Could I put that down in a little business plan for other people to follow? I don't think I could, but I think if you want to make this your living, you've got to be prepared for a lot of graft and to spend a lot of time, and you've got to be realistic about your abilities, maybe not only editing but presenting. Do you have the charisma to entertain people just through your voice? Because motovlogging, that's what it is, isn't it? It's your voice on a camera, and a lot of the time you don't even see someone's face. They've got a helmet on a lot of the time, so you've got to entertain with your voice, you've got to entertain with the edit. Not impossible. Don't get me wrong, it's not rocket science, but it's a little skill set that you need to acquire, and if you've got it, go for it. If you don't, build towards it.
I mean, two things that can shortcut that growth, though, I think. Like, I'm not trying to discourage anyone from having a go.
No, not at all.
It is more crowded, and I think, that I guess we're both saying the same thing, is like, we've both had a long journey to get here. So if you want to be a YouTuber and whatever, expect it to take a while. But two quick things that I wish maybe I'd known before, though I don't really regret my journey to where I am now. Like you were saying earlier, I've learned a lot on the way. But number one is, on YouTube, start niche and then grow out from that, and really kind of stick to your niche. So easiest thing to do is make videos about the bike you own and just go into every single detail. Do a video about the aftermarket exhaust you fitted. Do a video about what it was like versus the last bike you've ridden, or what it's like versus another bike you've test ridden. Because most of your videos will die or succeed on the click-through rate and engagement of your subscribers when you're that small. So if you can get kind of even 100 or 1,000 subs to start regularly engaging with content about, for me, it was originally an ER6N. As I grew quicker, like a street twin, just really cover every single angle you can, get every single video you can out of it. And then grow from there once you've got to the level where you can start branching out and say, well, how does it compare to this bike? And then, like I say, go from there. I've thought of another thing, by the way. Number 2 was look at YouTube analytics and kill all the stuff that doesn't do that well. Like there's this 80-20 rule. 80% of views will come from the top 20% of your videos. And like, that's quite common. I've looked at a lot of channels. It's pretty much the case most of the time. If you spend all of your time doing videos like the ones that are in the top 20%, you'd be getting a lot of views. So it's hard to look at analytics and see the stuff that you've poured your heart and soul into performing really badly. And
it's like my trip stuff. Yeah,
it's easier not to look. But if you really want to grow, just be like, okay, well, it depends why you're doing it. But if you know, and also you have to factor in, well, how did that stuff perform on Patreon and how much of that stuff drives Patreon? But from a YouTube views and revenue perspective, kill the stuff. If you're purely thinking about like AdSense and whatever, kill the stuff that's not doing that well and just focus on the stuff that's doing well for you. Last thing is, if you're going to get started on YouTube, stop asking dealers for bikes so you can make YouTube videos. Stop going to PR guys and asking for press bikes when you've got like 1,000 subs, and start thinking about what you can do for them that's going to get you noticed. So let's say your local dealer has a lot of dealers do those days where, they put a burger van outside and they get everyone down and they'll get the demo bikes out or whatever. Get down there. If you've got a good camera and you can take good photos or you can do a little video, get down there and like do some good photos and tag them when you post them on Instagram and show them
PR
that you
are.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I just find it pretty ballsy to walk up and say, can I have a bike, when you've not even shown like how you can reciprocate that relationship. What's the quality of the stuff that you're going to put out? The other thing that, I always talk to dealers about as well is like, of course I want to get on the latest, fastest bike you've got in the dealership, but what's the one that sells the most for those guys? Or like, what's the one that they bought like 20 of in stock and they're not selling? And like,
what do you need to push?
Does that then give you an idea for a video? I'm not saying go to the dealer and say, what bikes do you want to sell? And then you make a video where you're like, hey, this bike's great. It's so good, like whatever. But if you could at least do a video on that bike and be like, what is this bike really like? Or like, why it maybe is a bit unusual, or like, I don't know if you could ever sell it to a dealer to let you ride their bike and say like why it's underselling, but those sorts of things. Or how could I feature this bike in a way that's kind of interesting, but also then it will lead to stuff. I think the more you do for dealers, the more you do for PR people, it will always easily pay for itself many times
100%.
over than if you just go in and just say, give me a bike. Because what?
Definitely.
Oh, because I've got 1,000 subs and I'm a big deal. Like it doesn't, I've made that mistake of being too hasty.
Yeah.
Just try and reciprocate, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's never been easier than it is now with social media. As you say, all you need to do is tag in that dealership, tag in the manufacturer, tag in a product. And Instagram, particularly Instagram in particular, it's where the PR marketing teams, that's what they're using, that's what they're monitoring. And if you tag in a manufacturer, generally that social platform is handled by the PR and marketing team. So it's a great inner. It always used to be the problem, didn't it? Trying to find that person that you need to speak with. Well, now it's fairly easy. It's on social media. Just tag them in.
And thinking of it, I don't want to just promote this idea in like a completely selfish way of like, oh, let's all go and tag like whatever. Like, I agree with you. I definitely get what you're saying. But also, I think, and you'll probably agree, like we're not all promoting this idea that you just go and take a nice photo and tag the PR guy so he gives you a bike. Like, we all need to work together to promote motorcycling so that we all like can enjoy it as a thing. Like, it's good for the PR guys if I get coverage on their bike, because eventually, like, en masse, all the YouTubers, like more people will buy those bikes. But that means more money goes back into the manufacturers, and then they create more cool motorbikes, and then we get to talk about more cool motorbikes, and then there are better bikes to buy, and then it all loops around. And I think, you know, just being in it for yourself is not enough. Like, it's better for everybody. It's better for the manufacturers. It's better for the and gladly, like through COVID, I think bikes have been doing all right. I've heard from a lot of the dealers that like they're selling more than last year, some of them, and certainly used bikes.
Crazy?
People need,
yeah.
And so like what a time to be kind of like in this industry, and let's all like push it together. You know, not just blindly like being positive about bikes, but I think just recognizing that what's good for me is also good for, you know, everybody in that whole kind of sphere is, you know, definitely a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeez, we're not doing well at these yes and no answers, are we? Right, 3 more patron questions. The Bingley Wheeler, Dave, to you both. Down the line, what one thing would first signal a decision to retire from biking? Death. That's it for me. When I can't ride, that'll be it.
What about that? Do you think that bike that went across in front of Rossi at the weekend will make him retire?
Looking at his face in the pits afterwards, I almost would put money on it, but Rossi's, you know, all those racers are a different breed, and Rossi is a different breed amongst the different breed, isn't he? You know, I think the vast majority of racers out there probably would have retired a year or two ago, and Rossi's still there, and okay, he's not getting first, but occasionally he's getting the odd he's generally 3rd to 5th most races, isn't he? So he's still competing to an extent at the absolute top level. I wouldn't be surprised if he retires, but I wouldn't be surprised if he keeps on going. I don't know. I really don't know.
I'd like to see him going to something else as well. Like, I know he's always dabbled in like cars and stuff, and obviously he's had a go in an F1 car. That's not really realistic, but yeah. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked, and that was my fault. I really don't know, and I think the more you know, I've kind of talked through this podcast about the fact that it potentially could become a career for me, and it has become that for you. I mean, then it becomes, well, really questionable about whether you could ever give it up.
Yeah, I mean, I've chatted to people about this before, and that, you know, I'm 43 at the moment, and it's like, what about when I'm 60, 65, 70, 75 years of age? You know, well, I'm hoping that I won't need to work by that point, but, you know, at the moment, I've taken a massive pay cut doing this, so it's like, I've got a long way to go to get to the stage financially whereby in 20 years' time I can retire. So I don't know what the future holds. All I know now is I love, even though it's graft, I work harder at this than I've ever done in any job. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I love being in charge of what I do, where I go, when I do it.
So I think that I'd agree. Like, I find YouTube work, it's harder, but it's much more rewarding than anything 100%, I've ever done.
100%, yeah.
And I think for that reason, I guess that's what I'm saying, is like the fact that it has become a big part of my life means that it would take something really significant. I mean, it's difficult when you've got kids. I've been so lucky so far, touch wood, accident-wise or whatever, you know, run-ins-wise. But I still have those moments, you know, there's little, where you see a car like twitching out, you know, in London, even pedestrians as well, like coming across you, and with kids at my age, you know, it really does make you think a lot about how you ride. And even then, there's no guarantees, but I think, it would take something pretty significant for me to ever think about it. The question is, what would that be? I mean, a really horrible accident, I guess, is the grim question. The grim answer.
Have you lost people to biking? Do you know any people personally that have lost their lives?
No, I don't think so. I mean, like I said, my whole, my whole family, the sort of bloke, the lads, the men, the brothers in my dad's side, have all been bikers, and there's been accidents, you know. I believe my granddad was in a sidecar, and my uncle went so quick round a corner that he like flipped out of the sidecar.
Jesus.
Yeah, and he was all right. But that's the worrying thing, is like all these stories that my dad, when he was younger, sort of biking around and his mates going too quick off a bridge. I think it might be my uncle got a Ducati and went too quick off a bridge, got a bit of air and then kept going straight through the hedge and stuff. They all seem like sort of like Laurel and Hardy, like old time slapstick moments in my mind. And I really hope that it never becomes a reality for me. I've certainly, my wife has friends who have said, your husband still rides now, you got kids, does he? And stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, of course he does. But it is a thing that I suppose it is a big question. I certainly have friends as well who have lost friends to biking, but just try and factor it into my riding and just try and ride it safe. What about you?
Absolutely. Anyway? I've not lost anyone directly yet to biking. I'm probably the one that's had the biggest accidents out of my little group. I know I've got good mates who have died where bikes have been it's not a specific reason, but like they've been away on a trip and something's happened and that sort of stuff. And I know of people who have died through bikes, but they've not been like close immediate family or friends. But I just still don't think it wouldn't stop me personally. I think I've had a couple of near death on the bike, and that's not stopped me. And it's just, I just take the viewpoint that it's a dangerous pastime, but then I also know you can walk down the street and have a heart attack, or you can walk down the street and have a stroke, or get hit by a bus. These things happen. It's life. So I think if you went down the line of trying to limit the possibilities of anything like that happening, well, you'd either never leave your house or you'd be walking around in a bubble. And my whole thing is about live your life. I get way more enjoyment out of riding a bike and what it brings to me in my life. I could never give that up. To give that up would effectively be the end of my life, so it's just not an option for me.
It's tough though, isn't it? Like I don't know, there are some big reminders, a couple that I think of, like a lot of my news a lot of my videos are news focused, and I set up like Google alerts. I don't know if you know about Google alerts, but basically anytime Google's crawler or bot, which basically goes out and scans the internet for new web pages, finds a new page, you can set up this thing called Google Alerts, and it will email you every day the new things it's found. And a couple of years ago, when I started doing a bit more of the news stuff, I was like, well, maybe I should set one of those up for like motorcycles. So I put like motorcycles, motorcycling, like whatever, a few keywords. And for a couple of months, all I got was like, if you do Google News for that, is motorcyclist dies on a whatever, or driver pulls out and kills motorcyclists on this road, and like every day. And the thing with Google is across the globe, so you'd be getting stories from everywhere. And I think partly that's the media really focuses on stories like that. But with that kind of like Google stuff, you can figure like, well, you can filter out if you do minus died, minus death, those kinds of things. Then I guess a constant reminder is when I get my email from Google Alerts each day, which shows me some of the latest motorcycle stories.
Cool, that's horrific.
Every time it comes, I honestly, it says...
Oh, mate, turn that shit off. I just wouldn't bother with that. God,
no, well, that's what I'm saying. I've filtered out all those stories, but yeah, when you look at it, it says motorcycle, motorcyclist, motorbike. Those are the keywords I've put in. And then the words I've filtered out are crash, dead, died, rebel, motorcycle rebel, injured, police, chase, theft, stolen, collision. And those are all the words I had to use to filter out to get something.
And now you get nothing.
No, I'm getting a lot about the Sturgis rally and everyone getting COVID there. But yeah, I get a lot less of that. But there's a lot of that stuff. But I felt like personally that was a useful experience almost. To realize just across the globe it is hazardous, and like take that into your riding and ride sensibly on the road. And obviously we all like to have a bit of fun, but also I think it's good to acknowledge that. The other thing, like just the other day I was riding along, you know how truck drivers spray paint their booths sometimes in like all sorts of mad stuff. And I was going down the Old Kent Road and just came past this I came past this truck, and it was just completely decorated with images and kind of like RIP type messages for Robert Dunlop, you know, one of the Dunlop brothers. I think he died a couple of years ago, road racing. I don't know if it was...
Oh, Michael. No, William.
It was definitely Robert. It was definitely Robert Dunlop, because it's my
he died. He died just after Joey, didn't he?
Really? Anyway, I don't know. It was just a weird moment where I was like riding along down the road, and then I saw this kind of like lorry. Lorries being one of the main causes. I say one of. Certainly for cyclists, the main cause of death in London. Is lorries turning left.
Yeah, but look at those. Lorries turning left. How fucking big is a lorry? How much of a dickhead have you got to be to go up the inside of a lorry as it's turning left?
I guess me saying that isn't a critique of lorry drivers. I just think whenever I see a lorry, I just feel like I need to give this a few meters.
Absolutely, 100%. And a bus. Yeah, just give it room. And a van.
And then to see it decorated in kind of things commemorating the death of a motorcyclist, I was just like, wow, that's like, because coming from, you know, behind it, you know, the trailer and stuff, I was like, oh shit, like I need to get like wide of this and make sure they've got space to see me. And then it was really, I don't know, I just really noticed it. It was one thing that stood out to me. And I think, you just see reminders like that, and you just have to, just take it on board and ride as sensibly. But you know, I'm not immune to the bug of just getting a bit of open road and having a good time. But
central London's totally different, and city commuting is totally different. You have to be focused. You are not riding a bike like you are, or you shouldn't be riding a bike like you are when you're out in the open road and out in the countryside. You can't.
But it doesn't
Plenty
scare
people
me
do,
the same.
But you can't.
You know what, if you're riding at 30, 40 and then someone pulls out and you slam on the brakes, you're probably going to hit them at like 10 miles an hour or something, 15. And I used to cycle a lot, mate. I used to be well into like triathlon, cycling, all that kind of thing, marathons. And then I got a bike, and then I just put on 2 stones and just like razz around everywhere. But like when I cycled, you know, I'd be wearing little polystyrene lid and some lycra. And I'd be going along at 30 if I was like pushing it. London doesn't scare me on a motorbike. It's good to have those reminders. What scares me is when I get out to like open roads and you're bombing along at 60 or whatever, and there are side roads where, wherever, like that. I think that's what is sketchy for me on the road is kind of the quicker roads out in the countryside where people think it's quiet, but it's not.
Being realistic though, if someone pulls out on you on one of those roads out in the country where it's a 50 or a 60, if someone pulls out on you and didn't see you, chances are you ain't going to survive that. You're not going to know anything about it. In London, I was doing, and I've got this on my GPS, when I got wiped out with my shoulder, Old Kent Road, nurse pulled out in front of me on the way home. Sorry, wife. Oh, thank you very much. Cheers, babe. Thank you. Okay, no worries. Cheers. Thank you. Apparently the police helicopter's up searching. It's a nice area where we live. It's like being back in London. Hopefully not. That's that ride I went out on earlier. What was I saying? Oh yeah. When I got wiped out, I was doing 38 according to my GPS at the moment of collision, right? And it was a 30, so it's my fault. It goes down as my fault. She pulled out straight out from the side road. I hit the brakes, 38 miles an hour. I nearly lost my left arm. And that's at 38 miles an hour from simply shoulder charging a car. That has had more of an impact than, I crashed in Germany at 130 mile an hour and broke me back. But that's not had any impact on me. That 38 mile an hour crash to me has done more to slow me down and change my style of riding than the high speed one did. 100%. Absolute 100%. And I think in the city, it's just, if you have a momentary lapse of concentration in the city, it can have far bigger repercussions than having a little momentary lapse when you're out. Maybe not in a national, I don't know. I always felt more vulnerable in the city than I do out in the open road, definitely, for me personally.
You felt more vulnerable in the city? Interesting.
Yeah, it did.
I feel, I definitely feel the opposite, but
I had 4 accidents in about 3 years, all in the city, all on the Old Kent Road. And it just, each one, it was just like, oh, for God's sake, what's going on here? What is happening?
Old Kent Road is like one of the worst, though, for having bus lanes where it's clear and people coming, across either way. And it's
like Battle of Britain. Commuting on the Old Kent Road is like Battle of Britain with Messerschmitts coming at you from every single direction, isn't it? You've got cyclists, you've got the electric scooters, they're coming up, you've got cars, you've got buses, you've got heavies, pedestrians. Have you taken an electric motorbike into central London?
Nah,
oh my
God,
mate.
But
suicidal, because they don't, most of the time they've got earplugs in anyway, but they just step out. They can't hear anything, so they just step out in front of you. And you're like, oh.
Have you ever been to the sort of classic car? I mean, in COVID times, it's not happening at the moment, but the car and bike night at Greenwich Market.
No, I've not. No, didn't know anything about it.
Oh, yeah, it's well good. I mean, sometimes there are entire bike nights there, like Urban Rider. They do sort of it's a shop in West London. They have a website. They do kind of more the retro style gear.
Yeah, I think I've seen them on Instagram.
So they do a summer party at Greenwich. Well, they've done a summer party at Greenwich Market before, but Park It in the Market. Well, this is a good chance to shout out Park It in the Market in Greenwich Market. So it's called. The car club's Greenwich, I mean, probably, 2.5 hours into this podcast, I'm reaching a limited number of people. But anyone who has the ability to get...
You'd be surprised.
Well, with your, your download numbers, it's probably pretty good. Greenwich Mean Old Timers. It's a brilliant name. Obviously, MOT is the car club, classic car and bike club that puts this night on in Greenwich Market. And it obviously it's gone away while we're in COVID, but it will come back. And Greenwich Market is like a beautiful place anyway. And they let them on the last Thursday, I think, of the month, fill it with classic cars and bikes. Crazy Horse, take a bunch of MVs and Indians down there.
Right.
And then there's a band and a DJ and food stalls, and it's proper good. And you
sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's well good. I mean, we'll definitely do it one night, maybe, if you can make it up once it starts again. But just thinking of the Old Kent Road, like, I met such a funny old guy there. He's like 90, and he had this. He was there because he had this mint, like, black Merc that was like a proper cool old car. And he was like a proper London gangster kind of guy, and he was telling me all these stories about, I mean, it got a bit mad, but he's like, yeah, I was like, we used to race up and down the Old Kent Road and stuff. And I believe it used to be like basically the racetrack for sort of South London. Yeah.
In days of old, Old Kent Road was just like the Mecca. It's like Broadway in New York. Days of old, Old Kent Road was a place to be.
I feel like that's all passed me by. When I think of the Old Kent Road, I think of like
not in our lifetime.
Traffic, yeah.
Not in our lifetime. Well, maybe not lifetime, but certainly I joined the old build 2000. I started in Peckham 2002, and it's never changed since I was there. So I'd imagine, certainly in the new millennium, Old Kent Road has not been what it was. I would imagine probably 80s saw the end of the old Kent Road, maybe into the 90s. But it's traffic, isn't it? It's gridlock.
He said you used to have a shotgun in the boot, like in the sort of 60s and 70s.
Well, they still have that now.
yeah, pretty much. You mentioned Peckham. I used to live there. Loved it.
What about?
It's so good. Just off the Rye. Do you know the Gardens? It's like a little square. If you go up like Peckham Rye towards there was a pub called the Clock House. And on the right there was a little square with a private garden, and I lived there for a bit. It was well good. Loved
When
it.
did you live there?
We moved to Greenwich 3 or 4 years ago when our daughter was born, because my wife's sister lives here and she's got family, so nice to be near other sufferers.
Absolutely. Share the love a bit. Share the love.
Yeah. It's like new parents but yeah, we really, really loved it there. I mean, obviously, like outside London, Peckham's got this reputation for being like a bit of a hole, and obviously only fools and horses and all that kind of thing. I'm sure it was, but now it's like,
it's hipster,
if you want to buy property in London, Peckham's where it's at. Yeah,
it's crazy, honestly.
I had like Scars Motorcycles, a little tiny custom shop. A guy called Jack that I'm hopefully going to see this weekend at the Mallow Mile.
You're going up, are you?
Yeah, he had a little shop down there and stuff. It was well good. There was all sorts of like creative stuff like that encouraged around there. His friend he shared the garage with was fitting. You know those BMW i3s or whatever they're called, is it? Like the little electric ones? He was fitting those into like 3 Series from the 70s and 80s, like really retro cars. He was making them electric and stuff. And I just always found like that area always had weird and interesting stuff going on like that. Greenwich, not so much. It's a bit more. You can commute to Canary Wharf from here on the DLR, so it's
see
banking.
when I first came to London, sort of 2000 and probably between about 2000 and 2010, that's when I was sort of boots on the ground in around Peckham. Because after that, I moved into sort of up into central London for diplomatic protection stuff. So that 10 years there, Greenwich was very much the sort of hipster, arty type area. And Peckham was just, no disrespect. My mum comes from Peckham. My mum was born and bred in Peckham. So no disrespect to anyone that's there. But it was a fucking war zone at that point. It was running gun battles and all stabbings and shootings and all sorts. And then I left that area, and all of a sudden, within a year or two, it transformed into like the next big place. And it was weird. Coffee shops started opening up, and it became really arty, and it was like all these new people moved to the area. It's like, what has happened? It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I like it. It's a good place, but yeah, I can see. Yeah, I mean, we're getting pretty deep, but like, I do feel
Yeah.
like there are problems with like gentrification in London. You see it everywhere, and for me, it's like you're probably part of the problem realistically. And so, what do you do with that? You know, three.
I don't
I
know.
mean, we're getting well deep there.
It
Like,
just displaces a social issue. I don't want to say social problem, but it displaces a social issue. You know, there's reasons an area becomes run down, and there's a reason that the community in that area struggles to, I don't know, there's crime, there's all sorts of social issues that come with it. And when you gentrify at that area, yeah, it brings that area up, but it just pushes those issues to the next place, doesn't it? You don't deal with the issue. I never feel like, certainly in London, I never feel like they deal with the underlying issues that are causing crime, that are causing the breakdown of families, that are causing dependency issues with drugs. You know.
Yeah.
But as you said, that's a very deep issue, not for two moto vloggers to deal with pissed up on a podcast.
Maybe, but like also it's cool to hear that like you as a former copper, you know, kind of think like that, because you know, it's you know, it's sad to think for me sometimes when you've really lived in places like that. And I don't think I'm, like I say, I think in terms of like pushing house prices up and stuff, I don't think I'm really helping. But you know, you really see people like living their day to day, and you start to realize that all the crime and stuff in those areas isn't a first order effect. It's not that everyone's just living there thinking like that'll be a good laugh. I don't, and so yeah, I agree. It's like you've got to look for those the sort of what's the stimulus of that problem? What's the cause of that problem? And yeah, I totally agree. I don't think that like some bits dealt with, but I agree also with you that it's getting a little. We've got a few Patreon questions to get to.
We've still got two left.
And
we've not even
3 hours.
Mate, we have to round it up soon. My missus she's working tomorrow. She's next door, so
okay. So also my memory card's full, so you have to switch to Zoom for this last bit.
Oh, you're done?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay, right. We'll have to shout for the microphone because the audio is terrible on Zoom. Right, last two questions on Patreon. Andrew Scott, why do round pizzas... we couldn't get a more opposite question than what we've just been talking about. Andrew Scott, why do round pizzas come in square boxes and get cut into triangles? Wow. I definitely need to start smoking weed. I really need to deal with these questions.
Your audience is...
I love it. I love you. I love you a lot.
You do occasionally get those octagonal pizza boxes.
That's just freaky. It's wrong. My answer is because they do. That's it. It's just what it is. It's what it should be, and it's what it will be.
I mean, yeah. I don't have a good. I mean, how
Rob,
else would
you are thinking way too much into this question, dude.
I'm mulling it. You know, what else are you going to cut a pizza into? You're not going to cut that into squares or whatever. Yeah,
exactly.
I think
what could you do?
It's beyond me. Yeah.
Yeah. It just is, Andrew. It just is.
Yeah, exactly, Andrew.
Except some things in life are just the way they are, mate. That's just it.
Make your peace with it. Shultz
one. I love this name. I love your name. David Schultz. I wish I was a Schultz. I wish I had a Schultz in my name. I feel like an NYPD copper or fireman. It'd be Schultz. David B. Schultz. Rob, are you real? Do you know, David? Are you really just a wannabe hipster? But more seriously, do you prefer the solo ride reviews or the dual ones you do with Tim? David obviously knows you, or knows your channel.
Yeah, I think this comes from if this is a reference to a comment that me and Tim once got on the podcast channel, then that's proper good. So fair play to David. I do know David actually. What did you say his full name was?
Bescholtz. David Bescholtz.
He could well be. Anyway, we've once got a really funny comment. I really want to find it, but it was basically like me and Tim were just doing a video, and then something you two just want to be hipster. But it went on. I mean, it's not the worst comment I've ever had. I've had a lot worse.
Some of them are brilliant, aren't they?
Yeah, but it was one that I posted in the group on our Facebook page. So yeah, I don't know if you agree, Bruce, but I find the term hipster is like weird anyway. Like, what is it? It's a kind of derogatory term. Like, what does it mean? I don't really.
For me, the term hipster is a young geezer in his 20s with a beard, a man bun, who wears sandals, drinks lots of coffee, and thinks, I don't know, that like they have this ideological viewpoint in life, which I wish life was like it, but the reality is it's not.
A bit of maybe style over substance.
A little bit, yes.
I'm definitely style over. I'm style over substance. So.
You are a very arty guy, though. No, but I mean, not substance. That's wrong. But you have an eye for detail, and you can see that in your vids. You know, you have an artistic eye for what you do. Absolutely. I'm one of these people that doesn't have that. I have to work really hard, and if I do happen to get a good shot, it is a fluke. Whereas you can have I imagine you're not worked with you, but I imagine you're the type of bloke or person who in their mind's eye has an eye, what I want this shot, and you can set your camera up to get that shot. For me, it's luck if I get that shot.
We definitely got to do a day out filming, because it's not luck. It's just
100% up for that. 100%
practice. Yeah. I am. I'm definitely in the wannabe hipster category. Do I prefer riding solo or going out with Tim? It would be well harsh of me to say that I'd rather go out on my own than ride with Tim. Wouldn't
but
it?
we're 3 hours into it with multiple beers, so let's be harsh. Tell me.
Yeah, he's a dick. And honestly, just slows down.
That's shocking, Tim. I can't believe you said that, mate.
I've got to say, honestly, me and Tim this summer doing these kind of 2-bike reviews, it's really been a long journey to sort of finding friends you can hang out with who always enjoy filming and like riding the bikes. And it's total coincidence because me and Tim parked in the same parking bay in London, and he saw my bike and he'd seen it on YouTube, and he went, do you park here on Instagram or whatever? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, well, you got a YouTube channel as well? Went for coffee, and then I was like, oh, we should do we used to hang out and just talk about bikes. I was like, why don't we just record it? It'll be a podcast.
Awesome.
Then we then we started like riding together. And then this year we honestly, really had good days out where you're like, like I say, it wouldn't be for people who just like riding motorbikes. It's a sort of day out where you've got to enjoy filming, you've got to enjoy taking your time, you've got to enjoy talking about camera settings and all that shit. But yeah, anyway, Tim's top notch, great guy, and I would take a day out riding with Tim or any other YouTuber as well, but definitely Tim's is well good. So
what's Tim's channel again?
Rarefied Road.
Rarefied, right, I'll check that out.
Yeah.
Right. Rarefied Road. There'll be links down below, folks.
Podcast is Full Tank Motorcycle Podcast.
What's it called?
Full Tank Motorcycle Podcast. Yeah.
Okay.
And we don't, I'd like to do it more often, but yeah, we just do it when we've got something to talk about. So yeah, it's good fun. And there's a Facebook group it's kind of private. I suppose that's our, like, your clan. I guess our full tank group is our clan.
Cool. Well, nice one.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, mate, I think that's going to do us, Rob, for questions. We're not going to make the Instagram ones. I can't believe that. But I've got no qualms if you're up for it. I've got no qualms getting you on again at some other point down the line, and we'll tackle some more questions. I've enjoyed it. It's been a good giggle, man.
I know, and hopefully at some point, like me and Tim, we've been doing a lot of remote podcasts between the two of us like this, but we used to do them like in person. Remember that? Yeah,
that's what I want to do. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So
100%.
it'd be cool. Maybe if you wanted to do our podcast at some point, we could.
Mate, I'd love to.
Especially because you're in Kent, that'd be cool.
Spot on. Seriously, I'm well up for that. 100%.
Sorry about the camera.
Don't worry about it, mate. So, folks, you're going to be on Zoom now, grabbing the Zoom stuff. So, but if you've made it this far, you're committed to the podcast. So, thank you very much for that. Right, mate, we're going to have to call it quits for now. It's like 11:15 at night. Rob, before we pull the plug, is there anyone you want to give a shout out? Is there anything you want to chat about before we end? Feel free to plug anything at all.
Mainly motoBob. It's a great channel, good content.
It is.
High production quality. Honestly, I think I've chatted about all the people, in little channels that I watch and stuff. Don't know who else. Just join the group, and it's much the same with you. I don't think it's necessarily like other YouTubers that make it for me. It's the people that watch. And so if people like what I've been talking about and they listen to the podcast or watch my channel and like what they see, then join the Full Tank podcast group on Facebook, because that's where I'm probably most candid. My sort of YouTube content is a lot more scripted. There's where I'm probably talking more kind of like on myself.
All received, mate. Got that. So, folks, check out, if you're listening to the podcast, check out the show notes. If you're watching the YouTube vid, look at the description. There'll be links to Tim's channel, to Rob's channel, and to their podcast as well. Make sure you check them out, okay? Right, Rob, mate, honestly, I have loved it. I've really enjoyed having a good chat with you today. It's been great to see the man behind those beautiful videos that you produce, and I hope we manage to meet up and do some stuff in person. It would be awesome to do a bit of work with you and come on your podcast as well.
Yeah, awesome. Cheers, mate.
Brilliant, mate. Well, all the best to you and the family. I hope you manage to get some sleep, and hopefully meet up with you and see you on the road.
Cheers, bud. All right,
dude. Look after yourself. Right, folks. I hope you've enjoyed this one. It's gone on a bit, this one, hasn't it? But it's been really enjoyable. I've really enjoyed this. So, folks, keep on doing your thing. Look after those that you love. But remember, most importantly, get on out there and live your life. Hoo-ha!